Picture yourself standing on a wide plain, where the air carries the scent of dry grass, and the horizon stretches unbroken in every direction. The sun hovers low, casting long shadows that move across the ground like slow-moving rivers. The sound of wind pressing against tall stalks creates a soft whisper, interrupted now and then by the distant call of unseen birds. The land feels vast, empty to our modern eyes, yet it is not empty. It is alive, filled with creatures whose footsteps will never reach our age, and with people, though not quite like us, who leave faint traces in the soil. If this image feels calm and steady, let it linger. And if you enjoy drifting into the quiet moments of history, you can gently support this channel by liking and subscribing, so more stories may find you in the stillness of night. Now settle in. 1,000,000 years ago, the earth did not yet know cities, roads, or walls. There were no written words, no metal tools, and no buildings to cast their weight on the land. But there were people, early humans, whose lives unfolded in ways both familiar and profoundly different from our own. The grasslands of Africa stretched like oceans of green and gold, home to great herds of antelope, elephant ancestors with curved tusks, and lions that watched the horizon with quiet patience. The air trembled with heat in the day and cooled to crisp silence at night. For our early ancestors, this was both home and trial. To live meant to move, to adapt, and to endure. These humans were not yet Homo sapiens. 1,000,000 years ago was Homo erectus who walked these plains. Their bodies were strong, their posture upright, their hands capable of holding fire and shaping stone. Their brains, smaller than ours, still carried the weight of thought, the kind of thought that watches the flames of a campfire and feels both fear and safety. Fire was their companion. It kept away predators, cooked food, and stretched the hours of life into the night. Imagine their eyes glinting in the flickering orange glow, the darkness behind them deep and endless, while sparks drifted upward like tiny stars. Archaeologists have found their tools. Stone hand axes, chipped carefully from rock, symmetrical and sharp. To us, they look simple, but to them, these were treasures, objects carried for months, even years, like a pocket knife is carried today. With these stones, they cut meat, scraped hides, cracked open bones to taste the rich marrow. Each tool told a quiet story of survival. The world was louder with animals then. Saber-toothed cats stalked in shadows. Hyenas laughed in the distance, and giant birds beat their wings across the open sky. Against this backdrop, humans seemed fragile. Bare skin, no claws, no speed to outrun the lion. Yet, what they had was persistence. A small group could walk for hours, for days, until the prey before them collapsed from exhaustion. It was not brute force, but patience that allowed them to hunt. If lions were sprinters, humans were marathoners. Their gift was not in sudden strength, but in enduring long after the chase should have ended. At night, they slept close, their bodies curled against a chill, the fire smoldering nearby. Insects hummed, the stars, unbroken by city lights, stretched endlessly overhead. Perhaps they looked upward, as we do, wondering about those cold lights in the sky. Or perhaps the stars were simply part of the background, as ordinary to them as the grass beneath their feet. Scientists traced the evidence of these lives in fragments, fossils pressed into earth, stone tools buried in layers of soil, ancient fire pits darkened by ash. From these fragments, a picture forms. Groups of 20, maybe 40, moving together, sharing food, protecting one another. Children clung to their mothers. Older members taught the young. The rhythm of life was simple. Wake, search, eat, rest. But within it lay the beginning of everything that would follow. There is a strange comfort in knowing that laughter may have existed then, though no one wrote it down. Perhaps a child tripped over a root, and others smiled. Perhaps someone made a strange noise imitating an animal, and the group chuckled softly. Humor is older than writing. It flickered like firelight in the minds of those first humans, reminding us that even in hardship, there is always room for a quiet smile. The climate shifted often. Ice ages came and went, reshaping the land. To survive, early humans learned to leave one place behind for another. Africa was their cradle, but step by step, they walked outward into Asia, into Europe, carrying fire and tools, carrying stories we will never hear. Imagine the patience of those migrations, not in years, but in lifetimes. No one said, "We are going north." They simply followed the herds, the rivers, the changing seasons. Generation by generation, their footprints reached farther. And yet, the most powerful force in their lives was not where they went, but how they stayed together. In small groups, survival was possible. Alone, it was not. This simple truth bound them: shared food, shared fire, shared watchfulness under the stars. When we picture them, it is tempting to think of struggle alone. But perhaps there were also quiet moments like the one we began with: the hush of morning when dew clung to grass, the slow chewing of roots and fruits, the comfort of lying on warm ground. Life was not only danger. It was rhythm. It was repetition. It was endurance. The bones of Homo erectus tell us they walked upright, their bodies built for long distances. Their faces were broad, their brows heavy, their chins absent. To modern eyes, they would look different, but not alien. If one sat before you by a fire, you would recognize them as human. The spark of recognition, that sense of kinship, would be unavoidable. 1,000,000 years ago, they could not know us, but without them, we would not exist. Their footsteps became our own. Their fires lit the way to ours. Their endurance, their patience, their will to keep walking. These are the threads that connect us across time. And as we sit here now, imagining them, perhaps we return the favor. We keep them alive not only in bones and stones, but in memory. They were hunters, they were gatherers, but above all, they were survivors. Under the soft light of an early dawn, the land begins to stir. A mist rises from the grasslands, clinging low to the soil, as if the earth itself exhales. The silhouettes of tall trees break through the haze, their branches stretching outward like patient guardians. Somewhere, a chorus of birds fills the air with shrill notes, scattered and untrained, yet beautiful in their rawness. Beneath this morning sky, the first humans also rise. Their movements are slow, steady, deliberate, like the rhythm of the earth itself. They are not rushing. Time for them does not feel urgent. The sun, the herds, the changing seasons are the only clocks they know, and these clocks never hurry. The ground is uneven beneath their feet, scattered with rocks worn smooth by rivers, cracked bones of animals left long ago, and the faint depressions of footprints that rain and wind will erase before another dawn. They step with care, though not hesitation, their eyes alert, scanning the horizon for movement. Every rustle could be food or danger. In this balance, life unfolds. We know this world not from memory, but from what it left behind. Fossils, stone tools, traces of fire, all preserved across layers of time like faint whispers of their presence. Yet when we speak of them, we must not imagine them as shadows or unfinished beings. They were fully themselves, as real in their world as we are in ours. To them, the present moment was not a chapter in history, but the whole of existence. They did not look backward or forward. They simply lived step by step, as we do today, though surrounded by a harsher and wilder stage. Homo erectus, the upright human, was spread far across the globe by this time. Their bones have been found not only in Africa, but in the valleys of China, the islands of Indonesia, and the wide expanses of Europe. 1,000,000 years ago, they had already learned the art of fire, though it was fragile and precious. Imagine the anxiety of watching flames flicker low, uncertain if they would catch again. Unlike us, they could not summon fire at will. Lightning, volcanic heat, or burning grasslands were gifts from the sky, captured and guarded with care. A fire once lost might not return for months or years. When they had it, they cherished it. Fires were kept alive, carried with embers wrapped in bark, moved gently from camp to camp like the most valuable possession imaginable. A small child may have sat near, instructed not to wander too far, as adults gathered food. The warmth was more than comfort. It was survival. Hyenas would circle but keep their distance. Insects would buzz, but the smoke drove many away. Food roasted, meat softened, marrow warmed. The fire gave light, lengthening the day, turning dark into a time of gathering instead of fear. It became the hearth of humanity before houses ever existed. The groups themselves were small, 20, maybe 40 individuals. Families, yes, but not families in the way we think now, with defined boundaries and names carried forward. Bonds were looser, yet still strong. What mattered was cooperation. Someone watched while others slept. Someone carried a child while another prepared food. Roles shifted as needed. Life was too fragile for strict divisions. Their diet was broad, not chosen but required. They chewed on fibrous plants, dug roots with stone tools, cracked open nuts, and scavenged from kills left by lions or leopards. When they hunted, it was persistence that won, not speed. An antelope, strong at the start, could be followed for hours, even days, until exhaustion gave the final advantage to human patience. To us, the idea of running under the relentless sun for an entire day sounds unbearable. To them, it was simply the way of life. Their bodies were built for this endurance, sweat cooling the skin, legs carrying them further than most creatures could last. Consider this. While lions had jaws and claws, humans had lungs and legs. It is almost ironic that one of the weakest predators became one of the most successful, not through sudden violence, but through long, steady pursuit. You could say that humanity's earliest superpower was stubbornness, the refusal to stop walking. The landscape itself changed constantly. 1,000,000 years ago, the Earth was shifting between warmer and colder ages. Glaciers in the north expanded and withdrew like slow tides. Rivers carved valleys and then dried. Grasslands spread where forests once stood, and forests reclaimed those same places centuries later. To survive meant to move. No camp lasted forever. The world demanded constant adjustment. If water dried up, they followed its memory elsewhere. If herds moved, so did they. This was not wandering for the sake of wandering. It was necessity. And through this necessity, they spread across continents, step by step, fire by fire, until their footprints circled half the world. And yet, within all the struggle, there must have been moments of quiet, moments that mirror our own. A mother braiding grasses into a rope, a child splashing in shallow water, an elder sitting still, watching the horizon with eyes clouded by age, their thoughts silent but weighty. These moments, ordinary and unremarkable, were as much a part of life then as they are now. History remembers the bones and the tools, but life is always built on the quiet hours in between. Their communication was simple, but it was there. Gestures, sounds, perhaps early words, though nothing written has survived. Imagine a hunter raising a hand to signal silence, pointing to the brush where movement trembled. Imagine laughter at a strange noise, a mock imitation of an animal's call. The seeds of language were planted in these exchanges, long before grammar or writing. And though we cannot know their exact words, we can be certain they spoke in ways that mattered. Warnings, comforts, invitations, commands. 1,000,000 years later, we are still doing the same, just with more syllables. The bones we have studied tell us they were strong. Thick skulls, heavy brows, long limbs. Their lives demanded resilience. Yet their skeletons also reveal injuries, arthritis in the joints, breaks that healed unevenly. These are silent testimonies to hardship, but also to care. A broken bone that mended means someone helped that person survive while healing. Someone shared food, protected them, waited. This care is perhaps the most human trait of all. Not the tools, not the fire, but the decision to help one another, even when it slowed the group down. Night returned every day, and with it came both fear and wonder. The darkness was deep, the stars sharp and countless. Without cities, the Milky Way stretched like a pale river across the sky. Perhaps they saw patterns, constellations unknown to us. Perhaps they did not give them names, but still felt their presence. To sit by a fire and look upward must have stirred something familiar. The same quiet that grips us even now when we leave behind our lights and see the true sky. And when sleep came, it came close together. The warmth of bodies, the glow of fire, the hush of insects. Dreams drifted through their minds, dreams we cannot know, but which must have been vivid, shaped by fear, memory, and hope. Dreams of animals, of falling, of running. Dreams of loved ones and of the unknown. In those dreams, perhaps, humanity began to imagine more than survival. This was life 1,000,000 years ago. Fragile, harsh, yet enduring. It was not empty. It was full of texture, of rhythm, of quiet courage. And as we trace their story through stone, ash, and bone, we recognize the reflection of ourselves. Not identical, but connected, like echoes stretched across time. The day rises higher, and the air shimmers with heat. Across the grasslands, the movements of life are constant. Shadows of grazing herds shifting like living waves. The cries of predators carrying across distance. And the soft crunch of footsteps pressing into dry earth. Among these movements, the early humans walk. Their path is not marked, no road carved into soil. Yet it is as familiar to them as any highway to us. The river's curve, the line of trees, the rocky outcrop where vultures circle overhead. These are their landmarks, their maps, carried in memory rather than written on stone. We picture them walking upright, shoulders steady, arms swinging with purpose. The skeletons we uncover confirm this posture. Homo erectus stood tall, their gait efficient for long distances. To see them in motion would not feel entirely foreign. Their stride was closer to ours than to that of any ape, their movements human in essence, if not in detail. Food was always the question. 1,000,000 years ago, hunger was not an inconvenience, but the rhythm of existence. To eat meant survival. To miss too many meals meant weakness and danger. Their diet was not chosen by taste, but by possibility. Fruits found near rivers, roots dug from soil, nuts cracked open with stone, the marrow sucked from bones left behind by greater hunters. All of it was food. Nothing was wasted, nothing dismissed. And when meat was won, it was celebrated quietly, not in ceremony, but in relief. The smell of roasting flesh filled the air, smoke carrying its signal across the plain. Hyenas might smell it, too, and linger at the edge of the firelight. their glowing eyes watching from darkness. Yet the fire's crackle gave confidence, and the humans ate, biting into warmth that softened the chew, sharing pieces hand to hand. Imagine the faint sound of teeth against charred edges, the satisfied grunts, the silence that follows a hunger finally eased. It is curious to think that their tools, so simple to us, were revolutionary to them. A stone, chipped and sharpened, was more than a tool. It was an extension of the hand. With it, an animal's hide was no longer impenetrable, marrow no longer unreachable. Each flake struck from stone was a decision, an act of intention. Archaeologists find these tools scattered across continents, and in their patterns we see something remarkable: symmetry. The edges were not random, but balanced, shaped with thought and care. In those edges lies the first hint of artistry, function married to form. Yet their lives were not defined by tools alone. They were defined by each other. Small groups moved as units, bound not by choice but by need. To be alone in such a world was to die. Protection was shared. Food was shared. Even silence was shared as they sat together by firelight, eyes reflecting flames, listening to the night's unbroken chorus. Children were raised not by mothers alone, but by the group. The weight of survival demanded collective effort. A child too small to walk was carried by others. Food found by one fed many. Elders, though slowed by age, were not discarded. Their memory of places, of paths to water, of seasons shifting, was as valuable as any sharp stone. Knowledge lived not in books, but in bones and voices, carried forward in quiet instruction, in example more than words. And though we cannot know their laughter, we can imagine it. Life without moments of joy is not life at all. Perhaps a child imitated the sound of a bird poorly, and the group chuckled softly. Perhaps someone tripped and rose again, brushing dust from their knees, and others smiled at the harmless stumble. Humor in its earliest form must have existed, not as entertainment, but as relief, a way to release the tension of constant vigilance. Even a small laugh, echoing under the stars, would have been a spark of humanity, as valuable in its way as fire. The landscape was unforgiving, but not merciless. It gave water and rivers, shelter in caves, food in the migrations of herds. It also gave storms, droughts, and predators. To live meant to balance gratitude with caution. One could drink from the river, but one also had to watch for crocodiles sliding silently beneath the surface. One could rest in the shade of trees, but one also had to listen for leopards waiting in the branches. Every gift of the land carried a hidden edge, a reminder that survival was never certain. Climate shifts brought deeper challenges. 1,000,000 years ago, Earth was in the midst of one of its many ice ages, though not every place froze. Africa's grasslands were drier, Europe colder, Asia harsher. These shifts pressed humans to move, to adapt, to follow the possibilities of food and shelter wherever they appeared. Their migration, slow and unplanned, spread them farther than any species like them had ever gone. From Africa's cradle, they reached the mountains of Eurasia, the forests of Southeast Asia, even the islands that required crossing water. Crossing water. Imagine the courage of that first step onto an island, carried perhaps by logs bound together, or rafts of reeds, or maybe clinging simply to driftwood washed ashore. These were not planned voyages, no sails or maps, yet they happened. Humanity was not confined. Step by step, they expanded into the unknown, and in doing so, became the first explorers. What did they think of the world? This is a question without answer, yet it lingers. Did they look at the stars and feel wonder? Or were the stars simply there unnoticed? Did they see animals not only as threats and meals, but as beings to be respected, perhaps feared? Belief may have been born then not in gods as we know them, but in awe, an awe for fire, for storms, for death. Perhaps a fallen member of the group was not simply left behind, but remembered, their bones noticed, their absence felt. The stirrings of ritual, of meaning, may have begun in those silent moments. We tend to think of them as primitive, yet their lives required knowledge, as deep as any textbook today. They knew which plants cured pain and which poisoned. They knew how to track an animal not only by sight, but by the faintest bend of grass, the scatter of dung, the broken branch. They knew when rains would come, when rivers would swell, when herds would move. To live 1,000,000 years ago demanded intelligence, patience, and memory. Without these, survival was impossible. Their story is not a forgotten prelude, but the beginning of ours. Every step they took, every fire they guarded, every tool they shaped was part of a thread that leads directly to us. They were not less than human. They were the foundation of human. The heat of the day eventually softened, the light bending toward evening. Shadows stretched long. The sky deepened into orange, then purple, then the slow arrival of stars. The fire was lit again, coaxed from smoldering embers. The group gathered close, the air filled with smoke and the faint crack of wood. Somewhere in that firelight, a child leaned against their mother, eyes closing, while elders stared into the flames, thoughts wandering where words could not follow. The night pressed in, vast and heavy, but within the circle of light, there was comfort. They had survived another day. Tomorrow would bring its own demands, its own risks, its own hunger. But for now, in the glow of fire and the hush of night, they were safe. And though they could not know it, their footsteps were carrying forward not just themselves, but all of us. The sky has darkened now into a full stretch of night. Above, the stars are sharp, countless, piercing the black with steady light. Without the haze of cities, the Milky Way is no faint streak, but a river of brilliance, flowing from one horizon to the other. The fire crackles, small sparks drifting upward as if to join the stars, then fading before they reach them. Around this circle of warmth, the first humans sit close. Some are awake, staring silently into the flames, while others drift into sleep, their heads heavy, bodies curled against one another. The night hums with insects, the occasional distant roar of a lion, the laughter of hyenas far off. But within the circle, there is a sense of safety. The fire holds back the darkness, and together they endure. It is easy for us to think of these lives as constant struggle, each day a battle for food and survival. But struggle was only one thread in the tapestry. There were also the rhythms of daily life that carried a kind of peace. The mornings were cool, the air crisp before the sun brought its heat. The afternoons were filled with work, searching, carrying, preparing. The evenings were for rest, for fire, for quiet moments. In this rhythm, there was stability, a pulse of life as steady as any heartbeat. 1,000,000 years ago, Homo erectus had already spread far beyond Africa. Their presence in Asia is recorded in fossils and tools found across Indonesia and China. One of the most famous discoveries was in Java, where a Dutch physician named Eugene Du Bois uncovered bones in the late 19th century. These remains, skullcap, femur, teeth, belonged to what was then called Java man, a direct window into lives lived so long before ours. Later, in China, another set of discoveries became known as Peking Man. The caves near Zhoukoudian yielded skulls, tools, and traces of fire, evidence of humans who lived there nearly 700,000 years ago, still within that long span of Homo erectus existence. These finds, scattered across continents, tell us that early humans were not confined to one environment. They adapted to forests, to grasslands, to colder regions with harsher winters. To imagine them in Europe during the chill of an ice age is to imagine resilience at its highest. Animal skins may have been used as coverings, though the evidence is scarce. Fire was not just useful, it was essential. Without it, the cold would have been death. To huddle by flames, to press close together, to guard heat against the wind. This was survival in its rawest form. The tools they left behind were consistent. The Acheulean hand axe, oval or teardrop in shape, appears in sites across Africa, Europe, and Asia. Its design remained nearly unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. To modern minds, this may seem unimaginative, but in truth it reflects something different. Perfection of function. When a tool works well, there is no need to alter it. The hand axe cut meat, dug roots, shaped wood, and broke bone. It was the Swiss Army knife of prehistory, simple in form, endless in application. We might smile at the thought of someone carrying the same stone tool for years. Yet this was reality. Tools were precious, not easily replaced. A good hand axe was a companion, an object that might pass from one hand to another, from one generation to the next. In that continuity, there's a faint shadow of what we might call culture, the passing down of knowledge, of skill, of tangible objects that outlived their makers. Consider how long Homo erectus endured. Modern humans, Homo sapiens, have existed for roughly 300,000 years. By contrast, Homo erectus survived for nearly 2 million years. That span is so vast it humbles our sense of history. They lived through countless climate shifts, through the rise and fall of species long forgotten, through ages when the earth itself reshaped. They endured, adapting without writing, without cities, without the inventions we consider necessary to civilization. Endurance, not brilliance, was their greatest achievement. And yet, brilliance flickered, too. To master fire was no small thing. To chip stone into symmetry was no accident. To spread across continents required not only strength but curiosity, the willingness to step into unknown lands. These sparks of ingenuity are the roots from which our own advances grew. The skyscraper and the satellite, in their own distant way, begin with a hand striking stone, with sparks kept alive in embers wrapped in bark. Life within the group was intimate. Privacy, as we think of it, did not exist. Every action, eating, resting, tending to children, was done within sight of others. This closeness could breed tension, but it also meant survival was shared. The lone individual, the wanderer apart from a group, was rare and short-lived. Togetherness was not a choice. It was the law of life. Children played even then, though their play was training. Sticks became spears, stones became tools. Running became practice for the hunts to come. In their laughter and imitation lay the seeds of learning. No schools, no lessons written on tablets, just imitation, repetition, and correction from watchful eyes. Play, in its way, was the first classroom. The sounds of their voices drifted across the plains. Not language as we know it, perhaps, but more than mere grunts. Scholars debate how much speech Homo erectus possessed, but there is little doubt they had ways of communicating meaning. A call to alert others of danger, a sound to summon, a gesture to indicate food, a rhythm of syllables that marked belonging. Out of these sounds, language would one day be born, but even in its earliest form, it carried the same purpose, connection. And when danger approached, that connection meant survival. A predator could be driven off not by one human, but by many shouting, throwing stones, brandishing fire. Alone, they were vulnerable. Together, they were formidable. This was their strength not in claws or speed, but in unity. When death came, and it often did, it left its mark. The bones of Homo erectus show injuries, some healed, some not. Skulls bear the evidence of blows. Ribs show breaks that mended unevenly. Yet many did survive such wounds, which tells us that others cared for them, shared food with those who could not hunt, protected those who could not walk. Compassion, though quiet, was present, to care for the injured, to protect the weak. These are not acts of instinct alone. They are acts of choice, of humanity. The cycle of life continued without pause. Births came, fragile infants carried against the body, their cries sharp against the night. Childhood passed quickly into responsibility. Age was rare, but not absent. Some lived long enough to see children's children, their wisdom respected even when their bodies slowed. In this way, life turned in circles, like the stars overhead, steady and unbroken. The earth beneath their feet holds these stories still. In layers of soil, we uncover the traces of their fires, the scatter of their tools, the impressions of their bones. From fragments, we reconstruct their world. And in doing so, we glimpse not strangers, but family across the span of time. The night deepens, the fire burns low, embers glowing red. A child shifts in sleep. An elder stares into the dark. The sounds of the wild surround them. Tomorrow, the sun will rise again. The herds will move. The search for food will begin anew. But for this moment, in the quiet warmth of fire and togetherness, the first humans are at peace. And as we imagine them now across a gulf of 1,000,000 years, we recognize the truth. They were not simply surviving. They were living. The morning begins not with silence, but with a gentle chorus. Birds stir in the branches of scattered acacia trees, their calls sharp and uncoordinated. The air is cool before the sun climbs high, dew still clinging to blades of grass. Smoke lingers faintly from the night's fire, its scent mingling with the smell of earth dampened by morning mist. In this light, the first humans rise again. There's no concept of tomorrow, no calendar, no marking of dates, only the rhythm of light and dark, hunger and rest, movement and stillness. Life is measured not in years, but in seasons and survival. They stretch their limbs, shake away the stiffness of the night, and begin to move. The children cling close at first, eyes still heavy, while adults step outward, scanning the horizon. The signs of the land must be read early. Footprints in damp soil, fresh dung from grazing herds, the faint rustle of movement where tall grass bends. To our ancestors, these were words written by the earth, a language of survival they could read with ease. The group sets out, carrying what little they own. A few tools of stone, sharp-edged and precious, are held carefully. Some carry dried pieces of meat or roots dug the day before. Others simply carry knowledge of where water can be found, where fruiting trees once grew, where predators were last seen. Their possessions were few, yet their memory was vast. As they walk, the land itself becomes a companion. The soil is warm underfoot, scattered with stones polished by ages of wind and rain. Insects buzz along the path, small reminders that life persists at every scale. The wind carries scents of animals far off, of rain on the horizon, of plants brushed by herds moving before them. To modern senses, these are faint and unnoticed. To them, each scent was a signal, a guide, a quiet message from the world. The walk is not hurried. Endurance, not speed, defines their pace. Their bodies are made for it. Long legs, narrow hips, a gait that can continue for hours without collapse. Where other predators would tire, humans persisted. This persistence, hunting, was their quiet advantage, not dramatic, not sudden, but relentless. Imagine the scene. A small group sets its eyes on an antelope in the distance. It runs swift and graceful, leaving them behind. Yet they follow, tracking the signs of its path. Hours pass. The sun rises, the heat builds, and the antelope grows weary. Still they walk, steady, unyielding. At last, exhaustion brings the prey down, not claws or fangs, but patience. When they rest, they do so in shade, beneath trees where the ground is soft. They sit close, sharing water scooped from streams with cupped hands. The children watch and mimic, playing with sticks, pretending to strike stone against stone. Their laughter small but bright. Even then, play was not wasted time. It was training, learning through imitation, absorbing the skills that would one day sustain them. The tools they carried tell us much. The hand axe, shaped with care, appears again and again across continents. Its form was simple, yet its symmetry suggests thought beyond survival. To chip stone into balance requires more than instinct. It requires an image in the mind, a sense of what the tool should become before the first strike is made. In this, we glimpse the roots of imagination, not art as we know it, but the beginning of shaping the world according to vision. Fire remains central, fragile yet vital. At night, the group gathers again to coax life from embers. A few blow gently on the coals, sparks flaring to orange before catching dry grass, then wood. When flames rise, relief moves through them all. Without fire, the night is longer, colder, more dangerous. With it, the circle of safety returns. The crackle of burning wood fills the air. Shadows flicker on faces, and warmth spreads outward. Around this fire, food is cooked, stories are likely gestured and mimed, laughter echoes softly, and sleep comes easier. Archaeological sites show these patterns. Ash deposits where fires burned again and again, bones cracked for marrow, stone tools scattered nearby. From these remains, we reconstruct not only survival but life. These camps were homes, temporary yet essential. Their traces still visible hundreds of thousands of years later. Imagine the strangeness of it. A fire lit 1,000,000 years ago, its ashes buried and preserved, now uncovered by human hands that descend from those very people. In the ashes, we meet our own reflection. Their spread across the earth was slow but steady. From Africa, they reached the Middle East, Asia, and Europe. Each step outward required adaptation to new climates, new challenges, new prey. In colder lands, fire became not just useful, but vital. The skins of animals may have been used as coverings, though little remains to prove it. Perhaps they draped hides over shoulders, securing them with cords of plant fiber. A first step toward clothing. The cold was no small enemy. It demanded ingenuity. Fire, shelter, and cooperation became the shield against winter. It is humbling to consider how long Homo erectus endured. While our own species, Homo sapiens, has existed for about 300,000 years, Homo erectus lived nearly 2 million. Their time on Earth was 6 times longer than ours so far. In that span, they survived countless climate shifts, ice ages, droughts, and migrations. If success is measured by endurance, they were among the most successful humans who ever lived. And yet, their legacy is not endurance alone. They gave us the foundation of humanity. Upright posture, long-distance walking, the use of fire, the shaping of tools, the sharing of care within groups. These were their gifts. Without them, we would not be. Night falls once more. The stars return, steady and unbroken. Around the fire, the group gathers, as they did countless times before. Some stare into the flames, lost in thought too deep for words. Others drift into sleep, their breathing slow, their bodies warm against one another. The world beyond the fire remains vast, dark, full of dangers. But here, within this fragile circle of light, humanity endures. And as we sit in our present age, imagining them across the gulf of a million years, we do more than study bones and stones. We keep alive the memory of lives once lived, of footsteps once pressed into soil, of fires once tended with care. They were not strangers. They were us in the earliest form. The sun climbs again, as it always does, rising over a horizon that feels endless. The air carries warmth quickly, pressing down on the grasslands, rippling heat above the soil. The humans stir with it, shaking sleep from their bodies, rekindling the fire that smolders low. Embers glow when coaxed, flames rise with dry grass. And again the circle of safety takes form. There is no ceremony in this act, no grand ritual. Only repetition, steady and reliable. To keep fire alive is to keep life steady. They move outward into the day, feet pressing lightly into soil still damp from night dew. The group spreads slightly, some ahead, some behind, all within sight of one another. A child stumbles, steadied by a hand. A sound in the brush halts them, all eyes turning, body still. A moment of silence, then movement resumes. These small gestures, hands guiding, glances exchanged, silence shared, are the language of survival. Food remains the center of every choice. A million years ago, to live meant to forage constantly. Berries found in shrubs are gathered quickly, tested carefully. Roots are dug, their bitter taste accepted for the energy they give. Insects abundant and overlooked today were part of their diet then. Ants, termites, grubs, all rich in protein, easy to catch. Meat, when found, was a prize, but plants formed the daily substance of life. The act of eating itself carried meaning. Around the fire, food was shared. Archaeological evidence, cut marks on bones, cracked marrow chambers, suggests cooperation, not hoarding. To feed only oneself was to weaken the group. To share was to strengthen it. This quiet economy, built not on coins, but on trust, bound them together. A strip of meat passed from one hand to another was not just food. It was survival woven into community. Predators lingered always. Lions, leopards, hyenas, each larger, stronger, faster than humans. Yet fire and unity gave balance. Stones thrown together. Shouts raised in unison. Flaming branches waved at the edge of darkness. These could drive away even the fiercest threat. It is a quiet irony of history that creatures with no claws and no armor survived among such beasts. But survival was never about strength alone. It was about wit, about patience, about the refusal to give in. Water was another rhythm. Rivers and streams marked their paths, their campsites. To drink was to survive. But rivers were not passive gifts. Crocodiles lurked beneath their surfaces, waiting. To approach water was to risk death, and so it was done carefully, with vigilance. The same water that sustained them could take them, yet still they returned, because there was no choice. Such was life then. Every gift of the world carried an edge of danger. Their faces, reconstructed from fossils, carry both familiarity and strangeness. Heavy brows, wide noses, strong jaws. Not quite us, yet undeniably human. To sit across a fire from one of them would be to feel kinship, recognition mixed with difference. Their eyes, deep and alert, would meet ours with the same spark of awareness. We would not need words to know. Here is a being who feels, who watches, who endures. The groups themselves were small, but their presence spread far. By 1 million years ago, Homo erectus had already crossed into lands far from Africa's cradle. In Indonesia, fossils tell us of their existence. In China, caves preserve the ashes of their fires. In Europe, their tools lie buried in soil once trodden by their feet. These scattered traces map a vast journey, not planned but inevitable. Where food led, they followed. Where climate shifted, they moved. Step by step, lifetime by lifetime, they circled half the earth. We marvel at this now, but for them, it was not exploration. It was necessity. They did not set out to conquer new lands, to map, to claim. They simply walked, always forward, following rivers, herds, and seasons. And yet, in that walking, humanity became a species not confined, but expanding. Their patience, their endurance, their persistence stretched the boundaries of life. There must have been awe, too, though we cannot know it. To stand at the edge of the sea, waves crashing endlessly, must have stirred something within them. To see mountains rise high, capped with snow, must have left them silent. To watch storms tear across the plains, lightning splitting sky and earth, must have imprinted a kind of reverence. These feelings, older than words, were the roots of belief, of wonder, of curiosity. Their dead were not always left behind. In some places, bodies were placed within caves, sheltered from scavengers. Was this simple convenience or the first hint of ritual? We cannot be sure. But even the act of placing a body with care suggests thought beyond instinct. It suggests memory, perhaps even grief. The beginnings of humanity's deepest questions may have flickered here, in the silence of caves where bones rested. Time stretched slow for them, yet across millennia their lives carried change. Stone tools refined, fire tended more securely. Groups adapted to harsher climates. Progress was not swift, not dramatic, but patient. Theirs was a world where change unfolded over thousands of years, imperceptible to those living it, yet shaping the path of our species. And within it all, there were children, born fragile, carried close, watched carefully. Their cries pierced the night. Their laughter echoed in daylight. Childhood was brief, but essential. In their games, in their mimicry, the future was secured. Each child represented survival stretched forward. Each small hand that learned to grip a stone was a thread carried onward. As the day passes, the sun burns high, then softens, dipping low once more. Shadows lengthen. The sky shifts through gold into purple. The fire is lit again. The circle formed once more. The group gathers, eating what little they have, resting close, listening to the world around them. Insects hum, predators call. The wind whispers through tall grass. Above, the stars return, steady, unbroken. And so life continued, a rhythm of light and dark, of hunger and rest, of danger and safety. Not grand, not easy, but enduring. In that endurance lay their legacy. They were the first to walk upright across vast plains, the first to tame fire, the first to shape stone with intent, the first to carry memory forward in community. They were not yet us, but without them we could not be. As we imagine them now across 1,000,000 years, we keep them alive, not as shadows or curiosities, but as ancestors, as humans, as the foundation upon which we stand. The light of another dawn spills across the plains, golden and pale, painting the horizon with a glow that seems endless. The air is cool for a brief moment, and the land feels quiet, as though holding its breath before the day begins. Slowly the group stirs. A few embers glow faintly beneath the ashes of last night's fire, and careful hands coaxed them back into flame. The first crackle of dry wood breaking into heat rises softly, and with it, the fragile circle of warmth is renewed. In that fire, there's more than survival. There's continuity, a link that stretches back through uncounted nights and forward through uncounted generations. They move with the day, as they always have, not in haste but in rhythm. Hunger pulls them outward, and the land responds. The grass bends beneath the weight of grazing herds. The ground bears the prints of creatures that passed in the night. Each mark is a sign to be read, each sound a thread in the story of the land. The rustle of grass might be the movement of antelope. A deeper rumble might warn a buffalo. Even silence carries meaning, for when the plain grows still, predators are near. They move together, their senses sharpened, their awareness constant. The elders walk slower, but their eyes see further. The young press forward, curious and eager. The children stay close, learning not through words, but through watching. Knowledge is not taught in lessons, but absorbed in the steady flow of life. How to follow footprints, how to chip stone, how to read the sky. There's no school, no classroom. The land is the teacher, and survival is the curriculum. By midday, the sun is high, and heat presses hard against the skin. Sweat beads, trickles, cools, and renews. Other animals pant and collapse in shade, but humans continue. This endurance, this refusal to stop, is their quiet strength. To chase an antelope until it falters, to follow it through the hours until exhaustion takes it. That is the hunt. There is no sudden violence, no dramatic pounce. There is only persistence, patience turned into power. When they succeed, the moment is quiet but profound. A kill means food not just for one, but for all. The carcass is cut open with stone, marrow sucked from bones, meat roasted on the fire. The smell rises into the air carried on the wind, a scent that signals both survival and risk. Predators may come, circling closer, drawn by the promise of food. Yet fire and numbers hold them back. Together, the humans eat, strength restored, bonds reaffirmed. And when the food is gone, when the bones are cracked and scraped, nothing is wasted. Even shards of bone may serve as tools, sharpened for scraping or piercing. To waste is to risk. To use all is to live. In this economy of necessity, they found both resilience and creativity. The tools they left behind tell us much of their minds. A chipped stone axe, balanced and symmetrical, reveals more than skill. It reveals thought. To imagine a form within a rock, to strike it into being, is an act of vision. These tools lasted not days, but years, carried across miles, repaired, reshaped, kept close. Each tool was more than an object. It was a companion, a memory of labor, a key to survival. We imagine them silent, yet their voices carried across the plain. Not speech as we know it, but sounds layered with meaning. A cry of warning, a call to gather. A rhythm of syllables that meant food, water, danger. Perhaps laughter, too, at the odd noise of a child, at the mimicry of an animal. Language begins not with grammar, but with connection, and connection was essential. These sounds were the roots of the vast forest of words that would someday follow. When they rested, they did so in shade, their bodies close, their eyes always alert. To lie too long, to sleep too deeply, was to risk everything. The predators of their world never slept fully. Lions watched from grass, leopards waited in trees, crocodiles lurked in rivers. Yet even in this constant caution, there was comfort. Together they could rest. Together they could breathe. As the day softened into evening, the fire was lit again. Its glow stretched outward, a fragile border between safety and the endless dark. They sat near it, eyes reflecting orange, shadows long and flickering. The children leaned against their parents, drowsy with warmth. The elders stared into flames, thoughts unspoken, perhaps memories drifting through their minds. This was the heart of their world, the fire, the circle, the night alive with sound. Above them, the stars burned bright. To our eyes today, they are distant suns mapped and measured. To them, they were simply there, constant and eternal, scattered across the sky, like firelight too far to touch. Perhaps they noticed patterns. Perhaps they told silent stories with those lights. Or perhaps they simply accepted them, part of the world, like grass or wind, familiar and unquestioned. Still, the awe of looking upward must have been felt, even if no words named it. Death, too, was part of their rhythm. It came in many ways, through injury, through hunger, through predators, through age. Yet bones show signs of healing, breaks mended with time. This tells us something profound. They cared for one another. An injured member could not have survived alone. They lived because others shared food, protected them, gave them time to heal. This choice to help even when it cost the group is perhaps the deepest mark of humanity. Compassion was not an invention of civilization. It was there at the beginning, in the ashes of fires a million years ago. Their spread across the continents was steady, unstoppable. From Africa into the Middle East, into Europe, into Asia. Each step was taken not with conquest in mind, but with survival as necessity. Where the land grew dry, they moved. Where the animals wandered, they followed. Where rivers ran, they traced them. Each generation moved a little further, until the presence of Homo erectus stretched across half the earth. And through it all they endured. For nearly 2 million years, they lived, adapted, survived. Our own species has only just begun by comparison. Their endurance is a humbling reminder of time scale. We think ourselves lasting, yet our entire history is a fraction of theirs. They were not primitive shadows. They were masters of survival, of persistence, of patience. The night deepens. The fire burns lower. Embers glow. The group draws close. The land hums with life. The calls of hyenas, the soft rustle of the wind, the faint splash of water in the distance. Within the circle of warmth, humanity breathes steadily. Tomorrow the sun will rise again. Tomorrow they will walk again. Tomorrow they will endure again. And as we look back across a million years, across all the fires lit and all the footsteps pressed into soil, we see not strangers, but ourselves. The first humans walked the earth, and in their walking, they carried us forward. The day begins once more with a faint glow of light pressing against the horizon. The sky is not yet bright, but the outline of a land slowly emerges from darkness. A faint mist clings to the grass, drifting low, dissolving as the first warmth of the sun touches it. Within this pale half-light, the humans stir. Their bodies, stiff from the cool night, shift closer to the fire. Embers are coaxed again into flame, the dry crackle of wood breaking the stillness. Sparks rise, vanishing into the early air. With the fire comes warmth. With warmth comes movement, and with movement, life continues. There is no clock, no plan written for the day ahead. Time is carried in the rhythm of need. Hunger signals movement. The thirst of parched throats sends them toward rivers. The cries of children quicken the pace. Life is not scheduled, but it is constant. The world gives, the world takes, and they move within it as steady as shadows cast by the sun. The land itself is alive with presence. Herds graze across the horizon, their bodies shifting like tides. Birds rise in flocks, their wings catching the first light, filling the air with brief flashes of white and gray. The distant roar of a lion trembles faintly in the background. It is not a surprise, not a shock, but a reminder, like thunder before rain, that danger is never far. To live is to listen, to hear every signal and know what it means. The group sets out carrying little, yet carrying enough. Stones shaped into axes, a few sharpened flakes of flint, dried strips of meat bound in fibers. The tools are not many, but they are sufficient. Their knowledge of the land is what fills the gaps, where to find fruiting trees, where roots grow beneath the soil, where rivers last longest before drying. These maps exist not on paper, but in memory, passed from mouth to mouth, from gesture to gesture, across generations. By late morning, the heat has grown heavy. The group moves steadily, sweat darkening their skin, yet they do not slow. To walk beneath the weight of the sun is no hardship to them. Their bodies, shaped across thousands of years, are made for endurance. Unlike predators who collapse in shade, they continue, their breaths measured, their strides unbroken. This endurance was their secret, their advantage, their quiet strength. It was not dramatic, not sudden, but relentless. Persistence, hunting, was the art of patience. A herd of antelope flees, swift and graceful. The humans do not chase in a sprint. They follow, steady, step after step, hour after hour. They read the signs, a patch of trampled grass, a footprint pressed deep in damp soil, dung still warm. Slowly the distance narrows, not through speed, but through time. The animal grows weary. Its breath shortens. Its legs falter. And when exhaustion takes it, the humans arrive. Not with claws, not with sudden force, but with the persistence of will. When meat is won, there is quiet relief. Fires are stoked, flesh is roasted, marrow cracked from bone. The smell drifts far, a scent both of survival and a risk. Hyenas laugh in the distance, circling at the edge of firelight. Eyes gleam in the dark, yet the humans remain. The circle of flame their defense. They eat, they share, they strengthen. In that act of sharing, bonds are renewed. The group is not a collection of individuals, but a single body, moving, eating, surviving as one. Children are the heart of this circle. Their laughter rings in daylight. Their play mirrors the actions of adults. A stick becomes a spear. A stone becomes a tool. Their games are not idle. They are practice, shaping skill through imitation. Childhood is brief, but within those few years lies the future. To watch them play is to see survival extended into tomorrow. The elders, though slower, though worn by age, are not forgotten. Their knowledge of the land, of the seasons, of hidden dangers is priceless. A scar on the earth recalls a river that once flowed. A cluster of plants signals edible roots beneath. The memory of these patterns is carried by those who have walked longest, and so they are not left behind. They sit near fires, guiding with gesture, warning with voice, teaching by presence. In this way, wisdom is carried not in books, but in lives. Their tools remain simple, yet within them lies vision. The Acheulean hand axe, shaped and sharpened with care, appears across continents. Its form, symmetrical and balanced, is no accident. To create it required thought, intention, the ability to see a shape before it existed. This was not instinct. This was imagination in its earliest form. Every strike of stone against stone was a step toward shaping the world with the mind. At night, fire gathers them again. The circle forms, shadows stretch, sparks rise. Some stare silently into flames. Others murmur sounds, perhaps fragments of stories, perhaps simple instructions. Words, as we know them, did not exist, yet meaning flowed still, through sound, through gesture, through eyes meeting across firelight. This was communication at its root, language before language, the beginning of the endless forests of words to come. Death to remain constant. Predators claimed lives. Illness weakened the strong. Injuries left scars or ended swiftly. Yet bones tell us of care. Healed breaks mended wounds, survival beyond injury. These are the marks of compassion. Someone shared food with the injured. Someone protected them when they could not protect themselves. Someone chose to keep them alive, even when it cost the group. Compassion is as old as fire, as old as tools, as old as humanity itself. The migrations continued, slow, unplanned, yet unstoppable. From Africa into Asia, into Europe, into islands across the seas. To reach new lands meant facing cold winters, dense forests, unfamiliar animals. Yet they adapted, not with sudden inventions, but with patience. Fire, tools, endurance, community, these were enough. Step by step, generation by generation. They spread until their presence was written across half the world. And through it all they endured. For nearly 2 million years, Homo erectus walked the earth, longer than any other human species. Their lives, harsh yet steady, carried the thread of humanity forward until it reached us. The night deepens once again. The fire burns low. Embers glow faintly, their heat shared by those who sleep close. The land is never silent. The calls of animals echo. The rustle of grass moves with the wind. Yet within the circle of firelight, there is calm. They have survived another day. Tomorrow will come, and with it hunger, movement, danger, and endurance. But tonight, beneath the endless stars, they rest. And as we imagine them now across 1 million years, we feel not distance, but connection. Their fire is our fire, their footsteps our own. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and in their walking, they carried us into being. The morning light comes once more, soft at first, then steady, spreading across the plains in a wash of gold. The tall grasses sway with the push of the wind, carrying seeds that glimmer faintly in the rising sun. Insects hum low to the ground, their movement a constant background. The group stirs with the light, their forms stretching, rising, preparing again for the rhythm that never truly breaks. To walk, to forage, to endure. The fire is coaxed from its bed of embers, the smoke rising thin and pale against the cool sky. Children rub their eyes, leaning against mothers and older siblings. The elders sit still, watching as they always do, their gaze stretched farther than the horizon, recalling paths taken in seasons past. The air is fresh now, but they know it will soon thicken with heat. Their pace, steady and unhurried, begins as they step out onto the land once more. Every day, survival is a puzzle with shifting pieces. They read the ground for signs. The press of hooves in damp soil, the broken branch, the trail of droppings, still warm. These are the words of the earth, scattered sentences written in silence. They read with ease, though no one has taught them in the way we think of teaching. It is absorbed, lived, repeated. A child sees the gesture of an elder pointing to a track, watches the angle of a hand, hears the sound that signals direction. Slowly, without lessons or books, the skill is theirs. Food is gathered in fragments, roots pulled from soil, nuts cracked open, berries tested against memory. Some are bitter, some sweet, some deadly. the knowledge of which is not written down but carried in voices, passed quietly, remembered carefully. To mistake one plant for another is to gamble with life. In this way, memory itself becomes a tool, as vital as any stone axe. When fortune brings them close to animals, the hunt begins. Again, not with sudden violence, but with persistence. The antelope flees swift and strong, yet the humans walk after it, not rushing, not pausing. Hours pass. The sun rises higher. The heat grows heavier. The animal begins to falter, each step weaker than the last. The humans, steady and enduring, narrow the distance. At last, exhaustion topples the prey, and survival is secured. The kill is not wasted. The carcass is divided carefully. Meat is cut, marrow cracked, hide stripped for use. The smell of roasted flesh rises in smoke, drifting far across the plain. Hyenas circle at the edge of sight, their laughter echoing sharp against the still air. Eyes glimmer from shadows. Yet the fire, the numbers, the voices raised in warning, hold them back. Humanity claims its place in the order of life not by strength alone, but by togetherness. As they eat, they share. The smallest child receives as surely as the strongest hunter. The wounded are fed as surely as the healthy. To us, this may seem simple kindness, but to them it is more. To feed another is to protect the group, to ensure that no one is left behind, for every hand may be needed tomorrow. This sharing is the quiet glue of survival. Without it, they would fracture. With it, they endure. The tools of their world remain constant, yet carry depth. The Acheulean hand axe, teardrop in shape, sharp along its edges, balanced in its form, lies scattered across continents. These stones, struck carefully, reveal intention. A rock is more than a rock. It is a shape imagined, a function created. In those chips of stone lies the first glimmer of design, the root of all invention. Their spread across the earth is one of the most remarkable patterns in history. Step by step, they left Africa, following herds, following rivers, following seasons, into the Middle East, across Europe, into Asia, even onto islands where water had to be crossed, to reach Java and other islands of Indonesia. They must have floated, perhaps clinging to logs, perhaps binding reeds into rafts. We do not know exactly how, but we know they did it, for their bones remain there, their tools scattered in the soil. Imagine the courage of that crossing, to see land faint on the horizon, to step onto unsteady wood, to drift upon water vast and unfamiliar. They did not know what lay ahead, yet they went, not from ambition, not from conquest, but from necessity, hunger, thirst. The pull of life itself carried them forward. And in doing so, they became the first explorers, the first to step into the unknown and make it known. Climate was never still. Ice ages swept across the globe, reshaping the land. Forests retreated, grasslands expanded, rivers changed their course. To survive meant to adapt constantly, to move when food disappeared, to find shelter when cold grew harsh. Their bodies and minds bent to these shifts, enduring where many creatures perished. In this, they proved that survival was not about dominance, but about flexibility. At night, the fire returned as always. Its glow pushed back the dark, its warmth softened the air. The group gathered close, their bodies pressed together, their voices low. Perhaps gestures told stories of hunts, of dangers, of paths to come. Perhaps children listened, eyes wide in firelight, absorbing knowledge in silence. This sharing, whether of memory or of imagination, was the root of what would one day become storytelling. The flicker of flame against their faces was the first stage upon which humanity shaped meaning, and death, too, walked with them. It came quickly sometimes in the jaws of predators, in sudden falls, in wounds too deep to heal. Yet other times it came slowly, in age and weakness, in the steady dimming of strength. Bones show us this truth, joints worn with arthritis, fractures healed unevenly, skulls bearing scars of long-ago injuries. Yet in these bones lies proof of care. Someone lived with pain because others helped them. Someone survived a broken leg because food was shared, because danger was warded away, because the group chose compassion over abandonment. That choice, repeated again and again, is one of humanity's oldest traits. Through all of this, Homo erectus endured. For nearly 2 million years, they walked the earth, far longer than we have yet existed. Their lives were not empty preludes, but full existences, rich with rhythm, with danger, with persistence, with care. They were not simply waiting for us to arrive. They were living fully in their time, as we live fully in ours. As another night falls, the stars return endless and sharp. The Milky Way stretches above them, brighter than any sky we know now. They sit within the circle of firelight, listening to the distant calls of predators, the whisper of wind through grass, the crackle of wood and flame. The world around them is vast, untamed, alive. Yet within this fragile circle of warmth and light, there is calm. They do not know us, but we know them. Their fire is our fire. Their footsteps are our footsteps. The first humans walked the earth, and in walking, they carried the thread of life forward until it reached our hands. The sun has not yet risen, but the sky already hints at its coming. A faint silver spreads along the horizon, softening the sharpness of the stars. The fire burns low, embers pulsing gently, throwing out just enough warmth to hold back the chill of night. Around it, the group lies curled together. The smallest children rest in the crooks of arms, their breathing even, their faces still. The older ones stir first, stretching stiff limbs, shifting closer to the glow. Then the adults rise one by one, moving with quiet purpose, as though the rhythm of waking is as natural as the turning of the earth itself. The fire is fed with dry wood, and flames leap again, casting long shadows across the ground. This act, repeated without fail, is more than habit. It is survival, it is comfort, it is memory carried forward. To light the fire is to declare that another day has begun, that life continues, that darkness has not won. They step out into the morning, the air cool, the ground still damp from night dew. The grass bends beneath their feet, leaving faint trails that vanish quickly. Ahead stretches the plain open and vast, dotted with herds that move slowly under the growing light. The distant call of a bird breaks the silence, echoed by another, then another, until the air hums with sound. The humans move steadily, scanning the ground, the sky, the horizon. Nothing escapes attention. A footprint pressed deep in the soil, the faint bend of tall grass, the warmth of dung. All are read with precision. These signs are not guesses. They are knowledge, tested by repetition, reinforced by survival. To miss one detail could mean hunger. To notice it could mean life. Their diet is varied, as necessity demands. Roots are dug, berries gathered, nuts cracked, insects plucked from soil and bark. Nothing is wasted. When larger prey is taken, it is shared widely. The kill is divided carefully. Meat stripped with stone tools, bones cracked for marrow, fat rendered in flames. The smell of roasting flesh rises, drifting across the plain, attracting eyes that wait in darkness. Hyenas circle, their laughter sharp, their presence a constant reminder that every gain is contested. But the fire burns, the humans stand together, and the meat is theirs. This sharing is the heart of their strength. Alone they would falter quickly. Together they endure. A child too young to forage is fed. An elder too weak to hunt is cared for. An injured member limping is given food still. These choices, repeated endlessly, are the quiet foundation of humanity. To care for one another is not a luxury. It is survival itself. The tools they carry are simple yet profound. The hand axe, sharpened on both sides, balanced in its form, is more than stone. It is thought, intention, imagination. To strike stone against stone and create a shape is to impose will upon the world. The design, repeated across millennia and continents, is evidence of continuity. Each tool is both unique and part of a pattern, a thread connecting countless hands across countless generations. Fire, too, is more than flame. It is light, warmth, protection. It extends the day, pushing back the night, giving space for connection. Around it they sit, they eat, they rest. Perhaps they gesture, tell fragments of stories, mimic the calls of animals, laugh softly in the glow. Here, in these circles of flame, the seeds of culture were sown. The flicker of light upon their faces was the first stage of a long play of human meaning. Their spread across the earth is one of patience, not conquest. Step by step, they left the cradle of Africa, moving outward into lands unknown, into the Middle East, into Europe, into Asia, onto islands reached only by crossing water. The bones and tools they left behind are maps of their presence, scattered reminders that they walked far, endured much, and carried humanity with them. To reach islands, they must have crossed seas, perhaps on logs, perhaps on rafts of reeds, perhaps by accident, clinging to driftwood swept out by rivers. However it happened, it was done. They reached Java. They reached Flores. They reached places that required courage. To step onto water with no knowledge of what lay ahead was to embrace the unknown, not with curiosity alone, but with necessity. Hunger, thirst, the pull of life itself drove them. And in doing so, they became explorers, though they would never have called themselves such. The climate shifted constantly. Ice crept down from the north, then retreated. Grasslands expanded, then forests returned. Rivers swelled, then dried. To survive meant to adapt endlessly, to move when food vanished, to follow the herds, to learn the new signs of unfamiliar lands. In this way, humanity proved its resilience, not by resisting change, but by bending with it. Their faces, reconstructed from fossil and bone, are familiar and strange. Heavy brows, strong jaws, broad noses. Different, yes, yet unmistakably human. To sit across a fire from one would not feel like sitting with a beast. It would feel like sitting with kin. Their eyes, deep and steady, would meet ours with recognition. We would see ourselves in them, and they perhaps would see themselves in us. Death walked close always. Predators, illness, accident, hunger. Yet bones tell us of care, of healing beyond what one alone could endure. A broken leg that mended crookedly, a skull that healed after injury. These are not just marks of survival. They are proof of compassion. To feed the injured, to guard them, to keep them alive when they could not contribute. This is humanity at its root. It is a choice repeated again and again, long before cities or writing or law. The elders, though frail, were not cast aside. Their memory of places, of rivers that dried, of plants that cured, of seasons that shifted, was as valuable as sharp stone. Their words or gestures or sounds carried knowledge as real as any tool. They were libraries of flesh, living memory banks in a world without books. At night, as stars returned, the fire was the center once again. Its crackle, its warmth, its light. Faces lit in orange, shadows long across the ground. The smallest children drifting to sleep, the adults quiet, the elders watching. The world beyond was dark, alive with sound, the calls of lions, the laughter of hyenas, the whisper of wind. Yet within the circle of flame, there was peace. They did not know us, but we know them. Their lives lived fully in their time, carried a thread that led to ours. They were not waiting for us to arrive. They were not incomplete. They were human as much as we are human, though in a different shape. Their endurance was their brilliance. Their persistence was their legacy. And as we imagine them now across the gulf of 1,000,000 years, we do not see shadows. We see ancestors. We see family. We see the first humans walking the earth, carrying fire, carrying memory, carrying life forward step by step until it reached us. The horizon glows faintly once again, and the day stirs into being. A chill lingers, soon to be lifted by the steady rise of the sun. The first sound is the soft shifting of bodies near the fire, the crack of dry wood added to coals, the faint rush of flames catching air. Smoke drifts upward, twisting briefly before dissolving into the pale sky. Around the fire, the group wakes slowly, stretching, murmuring, moving into the rhythm of another day. There is no sense of days counted or tallied, no memory of calendars, no awareness of time in the way we measure it. Yet they know when to move, when to rest, when to seek, when to wait. Their clock is the world itself, the tilt of the sun, the pull of the seasons, the patterns of rain and drought. The land keeps time for them, and they listen. The plain stretches wide, scattered with trees whose branches claw upward against the sky. The grass shifts in waves, heavy with seeds that cling to bare skin. The sound of insects hums constant, weaving into the air like a fabric. The humans rise into this world, carrying little, yet carrying enough. A few stone tools tucked into hands, some fibers twisted into cords, knowledge held in memory. Their possessions are not measured in objects but in awareness. The map of water sources, the habits of animals, the warning signs of predators. Children cling close at first, eyes wide at the vastness around them. Soon, they grow curious, darting forward to pluck at plants, to mimic the gestures of adults, to stumble over stones and laugh. Their play is more than play. It is rehearsal. Each step, each imitation, is practice for survival. What looks like a game of throwing stones may be the first lesson in the hunt. What looks like a chase between children may be training for the endurance that will one day sustain them. The elders watch, silent but present. Their hands gesture, pointing to tracks in the soil, to the bend of grass where an animal passed, to the dark stain of dung still fresh. Their memory is long, their vision deep. They have walked these paths many times, seen rivers swell and vanish, seen animals come and go with the turning of seasons. Their bodies may slow, but their minds carry the survival of the group. The sun climbs higher, and with it, the day grows heavy. Heat shimmers above the soil, pressing down like a weight. Other creatures retreat into shade, panting, conserving strength. But the humans walk on. Their bodies are built for this. Long legs, steady strides, skin that cools with sweat. Where lions rest, humans persist. Where antelope falter, humans continue. This endurance is their quiet weapon, not sudden, not fierce, but unyielding. When the hunt begins, it is not dramatic. An animal flees, swift and graceful, vanishing into tall grass. The humans follow not with speed, but with patience. Hours pass. The animal runs, rests, runs again. But the humans do not stop. They read the signs, the faint print of hooves, the grass bent under weight, the marks left by exhaustion. Slowly, the distance narrows. Slowly, the animal tires. And at last it collapses, overcome not by violence, but by time. The carcass is claimed, and with it life continues. Meat is cut with stone blades, marrow cracked from bone, hide stripped for use. The smell of roasting flesh rises, drifting on the wind. The group eats together, each hand given a share, each mouth fed. The smallest children chew softened meat. The injured are offered pieces. Even the elders, too weak to hunt, taste the prize. In this sharing lies their strength. Alone, each is vulnerable. Together, they endure. And yet, danger lingers always. The scent of roasting meat draws eyes from the dark. Hyenas wait at the edge of light, their laughter sharp, their patience long. Lions watch silently, their bodies crouched low in grass. But the fire burns, the humans shout, stones are thrown, sticks brandished. The predators retreat, not defeated, but delayed. For tonight, the meal belongs to the humans. The tools they carry remain simple, but within them is thought. A stone chipped into a teardrop shape, edges sharpened, balanced in form. This is more than instinct. It is vision, the ability to see not what is, but what could be. These tools are scattered across continents, unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. Their design was so effective, so perfect for its purpose, that no change is needed. Each tool is a thread in the long fabric of human persistence. Fire, too, is both tool and symbol. It warms, it protects, it cooks, it extends a day, but it is also fragile. It cannot be summoned at will. It must be carried, tended, preserved. Embers are wrapped in bark, kept alive as the group moves. To lose fire is to risk much, for it may not return soon. Each flame is a gift borrowed from lightning, from burning grass, from the earth itself. Each flame is a reminder of dependence, of vigilance, of care. At night, the fire gathers them again. Shadows stretch across the ground. Sparks drift upward. Faces glow orange in the flicker. Some sit silent, staring into flames. Others murmur, gesture, laugh softly. Perhaps fragments of stories are shared, of animals hunted, of dangers faced, of journeys remembered. Perhaps imagination flickers, giving shape to memory, planting the seeds of belief. The fire is not only warmth, not only protection. It is a stage, a circle of meaning, a place where humanity learns to be more than survival. Death, too, returns often. Yet bones tell us of care, of compassion that reaches beyond necessity. A broken leg healed crookedly means food was shared, safety given, time allowed. An elder worn with arthritis means others carried the burden of their weight. These choices, repeated again and again, define humanity as surely as fire and stone. To care is to be human. Their spread continues, slow but steady, across rivers, across mountains, into forests, onto islands. They walk not with plans or maps, but with need. Where water flows, they follow. Where herds wander, they follow. Where the land shifts, they adapt. And in this way, step by step, generation by generation, they carried humanity into every corner of the world. The night deepens. The stars shine sharp, endless, unbroken. The Milky Way stretches overhead like a pale river of light. The group sleeps close, curled around fire, their breathing steady. Beyond them, the world hums with life. The roar of predators, the hum of insects, the rustle of grass. Yet within the circle of warmth and shadow, there is calm. They do not know us, yet we know them. Their lives were not preludes, not beginnings waiting for an ending. They were whole, lived fully in their time, enduring, adapting, caring. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and in their footsteps we find the path that led to our own. The dawn begins in silence, as though the land itself waits for the first crack of light. The fire smolders low, the faintest red glow still pulsing from beneath the ash. The group wakes slowly, some stretching limbs stiff from the night, others shifting closer to the embers, feeding them with handfuls of dry grass. Soon, a flame rises again, its glow spreading across tired faces. Around this fragile circle, the first sounds of the day emerge. The soft cries of children, the rhythmic clatter of stone against stone as a tool is sharpened, the distant call of birds carried on the cool air. The day ahead is not planned, not written, not counted. It unfolds as the world demands. Hunger pushes them forward. Thirst guides their steps. Danger shapes their caution. Theirs is not a life of schedules, but of rhythms. The sun, the seasons, the herds, these are the clocks by which they live, steady, eternal, requiring no names, no numbers. They move into the open plain, the sky wide and pale above. The grass brushes against their legs, bending with the wind. The elders lead with memory, pointing toward places where water once lay, where fruiting trees may still stand. Their gestures carry the authority of experience, the silent language of survival passed down without words. Children follow, watching closely, their eyes absorbing every motion. In this way, knowledge is carried forward, not through lessons spoken in classrooms, but through the slow imitation of life itself. By midday, the heat grows heavy, pressing down like a weight. The ground is hot beneath bare feet, the air dry, shimmering with waves of heat above the soil. Other creatures retreat into shade, panting in exhaustion. But the humans persist. Their bodies are shaped by endurance, their stride steady, their sweat cooling them where other animals falter. They are not the strongest, not the fastest, but they are the most patient. Persistence is their weapon, time their ally. When the hunt begins, it is quiet. An antelope breaks from the herd, its body swift, its legs strong. It flees across the plain, vanishing into tall grass. The humans follow, not running wildly, but walking, steady, unyielding. Hours pass. The animal tires, its steps grow uneven, its breath shallow. The humans, tireless, narrow the distance. At last the prey falls, overcome not by violence, but by time itself. The kill is celebrated not with noise, but with relief. The carcass is cut open with stone tools, flesh divided, bones cracked for marrow, fat stripped for use. Smoke rises as meat roasts, the scent drifting far across the wind. It is both gift and risk. The hyenas smell it, their laughter echoing in the distance. Lions, too, may come silent in their approach. But the fire burns, the humans guard, the meal is theirs. Each mouth is fed, each hand receives a portion. The children chew slowly, the elders eat carefully. The injured are given food without question. In this act of sharing, the group reaffirms itself. They are not many individuals, they are one body, one survival. The tools they shape remain constant, yet they speak volumes. The Acheulean hand axe, found across continents, is more than a stone. Its balanced form, sharpened edges, deliberate symmetry reveal imagination. To see a shape within a rock, to bring it forth with strike after strike, is to shape the world with thought. These tools are not simply functional. They are the first reflections of design, the earliest evidence of mind shaping matter. And fire, fragile, vital, remains at the center of everything. It warms, it protects, it cooks, it lights the night. But it is not permanent. It must be carried, nurtured, preserved. Embers wrapped in bark, flames guarded carefully as the group moves. To lose it is to risk days or weeks without its warmth. Each fire is a reminder of dependence, a fragile gift that demands care. In its glow, humanity gathers. Around its circle, they eat, they rest, they share. And perhaps they begin to imagine. At night, the fire becomes more than light. It is a gathering place, a stage. Shadows flicker across the ground. Faces glow in orange light. Sparks drift upward into the dark. Perhaps stories begin here, not in words as we know them, but in gestures, in mimicry, in sounds that carry meaning. The hunt retold, the danger warned, the memory preserved. In these moments, imagination awakens. The fire does more than warm. It creates the space where culture is born. The spread of humanity continues, step by step, generation by generation. Across rivers, over mountains, into forests, onto islands. Their presence reaches from Africa to Europe, from the Middle East to Asia, to Indonesia, even to islands across seas. To cross water is no small feat. Perhaps they lashed reeds into rafts. Perhaps clung to floating logs. Perhaps drifted accidentally on currents. However it was done, it was done. They reached places thought impossible, leaving their bones and tools as proof. They were the first explorers, though they never knew the word. Climate shifted always, reshaping their world. Ice advanced and retreated. Rivers swelled and dried. Forests spread and shrank. Each change forced movement, adaptation, endurance. To live meant to bend with the earth, not to resist it. Their success lay not in control, but in flexibility, in patience, in a quiet strength to endure what others could not. Their faces, as fossils reveal, are both strange and familiar. Heavy brows, strong jaws, broad noses, long limbs. Different, yes, but human still. To meet their eyes across a fire would not be to meet a beast. It would be to meet kin. Their gaze, steady and aware, would mirror our own. We would recognize them, and they would recognize us. Death was always near, but compassion was nearer. Bones tell of healing, of lives carried beyond injury. A broken arm that mended crookedly, a skull scarred yet survived. These are marks of care. Someone fed them, someone protected them. Someone chose to keep them alive. Compassion, as old as stone, as old as fire, was as much a tool of survival as any axe. The elders, though frail, remained central. Their memory of land, of water, of plants, of seasons was a living library. They guided with gestures, instructed with patience, reminded with experience. In their minds lay knowledge that no tool could hold. To listen to them was to live. The night returns again, stars sharp against black sky, the Milky Way flowing bright above. The group gathers close, the fire at its center, the world beyond alive with sound. Children drift to sleep, the injured rest, the strong watch. The fire crackles, embers glow, sparks rise. The circle is whole, fragile yet enduring. They do not know us, but we know them. Their footsteps stretch into our own. Their fire is the ancestor of every fire we light. Their care, their endurance, their persistence. These are the threads of humanity. They were the first to walk the earth, and in their walking, they carried all of us. The sky brightened slowly, as though reluctant to surrender the stars. One by one, they fade, leaving only the faint pale line of dawn stretching across the horizon. The fire at the camp is already awake. Someone has fed it dry wood, and flames climb steadily upward, orange light flickering against the faces of those who rise with the day. The ground is damp beneath bare feet, cool for only a short while before the heat of the sun will bake it dry. The group begins to stir in rhythm. Children whimper softly, then grow quiet when pressed against the warmth of older arms. Elders shift their weight carefully, their joints stiff, but their eyes sharp. The younger hunters move first, scanning the land, checking the wind, reading the earth for signs. This quiet ritual of waking is older than memory, older than words, yet it repeats as naturally as breathing. Their tools are checked, edges retouched with the sharp strike of stone against stone. Sparks flash briefly, small reminders of fire's fragility and power. The axes, the flakes, the scrapers, each one shaped by thought, carried across distance, relied upon for survival. In these tools lies their intention, their ability to see beyond the present moment, to imagine a shape, a use, a future. As the sun climbs higher, they set out. The world opens before them, a plain that stretches until it meets the sky. The grass ripples under wind, alive with hidden movement. The prints of hooves press deep in damp soil, leading onward. Birds circle above, their cries sharp against the air, signaling the presence of herds. The humans read these signs with ease. Their knowledge is not abstract, not written, but lived. The land speaks and they listen. Hunger guides them always. Berries plucked from bushes, roots dug with stone, insects gathered from bark. All are taken, tested, consumed. The taste is not choice but necessity. Sweet, bitter, bland, it matters little. What matters is energy, enough to walk, enough to endure, enough to live another day. When prey is near, the group changes. Bodies lean forward, steps sharpen, eyes focus. An antelope bolts, its body sleek and fast, but the humans do not rush. They follow, steady and persistent. The chase is not short, not sudden. It is hours long, patient, and unyielding. Step by step, the distance narrows, not through speed, but through endurance. At last, the animal falters, collapses, and survival is won. The kill is shared without question. Meat roasted, marrow sucked, hide stripped for use. The smell rises into the air, rich and strong, a signal to every creature nearby. Hyenas circle, their laughter echoing faintly. Lions wait in silence, eyes glowing at the edge of sight. But the fire burns, stones are thrown, voices rise together. The predators retreat, not defeated, but delayed. For this night, the fire belongs to the humans. The act of sharing is more than kindness. It is survival itself. The child is fed first. The elder receives their portion. The injured are given food. To deny them would weaken the group. To share strengthens all. This instinct for cooperation, for care, is as vital as the axe or the fire. It binds them together, turns many into one. The night brings silence broken by sound. The fire crackles, insects hum, predators call. Faces glow in orange light. Shadows stretch long. Sparks rise into the dark. Some stare into the flames, their thoughts unknowable. Their minds perhaps wandering into imagination. Perhaps they replay the day's hunt. Perhaps they warn of dangers to come. Perhaps they shape memory into something more. A story, a lesson, a reflection. In these flickering moments, culture takes its first breath. The spread across the earth continues. They move where food leads, where water flows, where climate allows. From Africa into the Middle East, into Asia, into Europe, onto distant islands. Each step is small, unremarkable in the moment, but immense across millennia. Their presence extends farther and farther, marked by bones, by tools, by fires long extinguished. Their footsteps write the first map of humanity. To cross water is no small feat, yet they did it. Logs, rafts of reeds, driftwood carried by current. Somehow, they reached islands cut off by sea. Java Flores, others beyond. They stepped into the unknown, not with certainty, but with necessity. They survived because they moved, and in moving, they became the first explorers. The climate is never still. Ice advances, then retreats. Rivers carve valleys, then dry into dust. Forests rise, then give way to plains. Each shift demands adaptation. They do not resist, they bend. They follow herds, they trace rivers. They leave camps behind when the land can no longer feed them. Their genius lies not in control, but in patience, in flexibility, in the simple decision to endure. Their faces, reconstructed from fossil and bone, are familiar in ways both comforting and strange. Broad noses, heavy brows, strong jaws. Not us, yet undeniably human. To meet their gaze across a fire would be to meet kin. Their eyes would carry the same light we know, the same awareness, the same recognition. We would see ourselves in them, and they perhaps would see themselves in us. Death moves with them always. Illness, predators, accidents, hunger. Yet bones tell of survival beyond injury. Healed fractures, mended wounds. Lives carried forward not by strength alone, but by the care of others. Compassion is as old as fire, as old as stone. It is not an invention of civilization. It is humanity's root, present from the beginning. Elders remain at the center. Their memory of rivers, of plants, of seasons, guides the group. Their knowledge is a map, a history of future. They are the libraries of flesh, the teachers without words. To listen to them is to live. To ignore them is to risk death. The fire burns low once more. Sparks drift upward into a sky heavy with stars. The Milky Way flows bright across the dark, a river of light unbroken. The group sleeps close, their breathing slow, their bodies warm against one another. Beyond the fire, the world hums with danger, with life, with sound. But within the circle of flame, there is peace. They do not know us, yet we are theirs. Their footsteps carried us forward. Their fire lit our path. Their care, their endurance, their persistence. These are the roots of all that came after. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and through them, we are here. The morning light spills gently across the horizon, and the shadows of the night retreat. The fire smolders low, but alive, its glow hidden beneath layers of ash. Careful hands stir it, coaxing sparks into flame, the soft crackle rising as dry grass catches. Smoke drifts upward, thin at first, then thicker, curling against the pale sky. Around it, the group begins to rise. Children blink awake, rubbing eyes heavy with sleep. Elders move slowly, their bodies worn, but their gaze alert. Hunters check their tools, edges sharpened with the crisp strike of stone against stone. The rhythm is unbroken. Fire, movement, survival. The land is never silent. Even at dawn, the plain hums with sound. Birds call sharply from the branches of acacia trees. Insects buzz low in the grass. The distant rumble of hooves hints at herds moving across unseen stretches of land. The humans read these sounds as clearly as written words. Each noise, each echo carries meaning. A sharp cry signals danger. A rolling thrum of hooves signals opportunity. To live is to listen, to weave the sounds of the world into knowledge. They walk as the sun climbs higher, the grass brushing against their legs, seeds clinging to skin and hair. Children stay close, though their curiosity pulls them to the edges of the group, where they pluck at plants, examine stones, mimic the gestures of their elders. Their play is not wasted time. It is the first classroom. A stick becomes a spear, a stone a tool, a chase a lesson in endurance. In play, the future is rehearsed. The adults scan the ground. A broken branch here, a bent stalk there, a shallow print in damp soil. All signs of movement. The earth is a canvas written upon by every passing creature, and the humans are fluent readers. Their eyes follow the story. A herd of antelope moved through in the night, their trail leading north. The decision is silent, but it is made. The group shifts direction, following the path that promises food. The hunt is not swift. It is not meant to be. An antelope bolts, its body sleek and fast. The humans follow, their stride steady, their patience endless. Hours pass. The sun rises high. The heat presses hard. The animal falters. Its legs tremble. Its breath shortens. The humans continue, unbroken, until the prey collapses. Victory is not taken with claws or teeth, but with persistence, with the quiet power of time. The kill is shared as always. Meat roasted over fire, marrow cracked from bones, hide stripped for use. The scent drifts on the wind, a signal to all who prowl nearby. Hyenas laugh in the distance. Lions watch silently, their eyes glinting in tall grass. But fire burns, stones fly, voices rise in chorus. The predators retreat, not defeated, but denied. For tonight, the food belongs to the humans. This sharing is the essence of their strength. The youngest, too small to hunt, receive their portion. The elders, too frail to walk far, are fed. The injured, their bodies healing, are cared for. To give is not charity, it is survival. Without the group, none could live. With the group, all endure. The tools they shape are constant companions. The Acheulean hand axe, chipped and sharpened with care, lies scattered across continents. Its design nearly unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. To us, it may appear simple, but to them, it was profound. It cut meat, dug roots, scraped hides, cracked bone. It was the extension of the hand, the first sign of intention made stone. To hold one was to hold the memory of its maker, the vision of a shape imagined and brought to life. Fire, too, is both tool and symbol. It warms bodies, cooks food, drives away predators, lights the dark. Yet it is fragile, demanding constant care. Embers are carried wrapped in bark, guarded as though they are treasure. To lose fire is to risk hunger, cold, death. To keep it alive is to claim a fragile dominion over the elements. And in its glow, humanity gathers. The circle of firelight is the circle of life, repeated night after night across millennia. As the flames flicker, shadows stretch across the ground. Perhaps stories are born here, not in words as we know them, but in gestures, in mimicry, in sound that carry memory. The day's hunt retold, the danger of predators warned, the path of rivers remembered. In these fragments lies the root of culture, the first spark of imagination shared from one to many. The spread of humanity continues outward. They follow rivers into new lands, trace the movements of herds across vast plains, cross mountains, forests, and seas. Their bones and tools mark their presence from Africa to Asia, from Europe to distant islands. They did not move with maps or plans, but with necessity. Hunger led them. Thirst guided them. Seasons pressed them onward. Yet through this necessity, they became wanderers, explorers, the first to step into the unknown. Crossing water is among their greatest mysteries. Yet they did it. Reaching islands like Java and Flores meant facing seas. Perhaps they lashed reeds into rafts. Perhaps they clung to floating logs. However it was done, it was done. They stepped onto shores where no human had stood before, and in doing so, expanded the borders of life itself. Climate is never still. Ice crept down from the north, then retreated. Forests spread, then shrank. Rivers swelled, then dried. Each shift demanded change. They did not resist, they adapted. They bent with the earth's movements, flowing with them rather than against them. This resilience, quiet and unyielding, is their true brilliance. Their faces, revealed by fossils, are strong and heavy, yet undeniably human. Broad brows, deep-set eyes, wide noses. To meet them across a fire would be to meet someone both strange and familiar. Their gaze would be steady, aware, filled with the same light we know in ourselves. We would recognize them. They would recognize us. Death was constant, yet compassion was older still. Bones tell us of healing, of survival beyond injury. A leg mended, a skull scarred yet alive, a body sustained by the care of others. To help the weak was not wasteful, it was human. This choice, repeated over and over, is as ancient as fire, as ancient as tools. The elders, though slowed, remain essential. Their memory of land, of seasons, of hidden dangers, is a living library. They guide with gestures, instruct with silence, carry knowledge no tool can hold. In their minds lies the continuity of life. The night deepens again. The fire burns low, its embers glowing like scattered stars against the earth. Above, the true stars shine sharp, unbroken, the Milky Way stretching bright across the sky. The group sleeps close, their breathing steady, their bodies warm together. Beyond them, the world hums with danger, the calls of predators, the whisper of wind, the rustle of unseen creatures. Yet within the circle of flame, there is peace. They do not know us, yet we are theirs. Their footsteps pressed into soil are the first lines of our story. Their fire is the ancestor of every fire we light. Their endurance is the reason we are here. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and in their walking, they carried us forward. The horizon glows faintly once again, silver at first, then gold. The plain awakens slowly. Grass bends under the push of the wind, scattering dew into the air. The sky carries the faintest echo of bird calls, sharp and uneven, as flocks stir from their roosts. The fire, though tended through the night, has fallen to embers. Hands reach forward, coaxing life from the ash, feeding it with twigs and dry grass until the flame rises steady once more. Around it, bodies stir, stretching against the morning chill, shifting into the rhythm that has always defined them. Fire, food, movement, survival. Children cling to mothers, then stumble outward, chasing one another in bursts of laughter that feel out of place in the harshness of the land. Yet their play has purpose. A stick wielded as a spear, a chase through grass, a mock throw of stones. These games are rehearsals, practice for the roles they will inherit. To live is to learn, and learning begins in play. Elders watch in silence. Their faces are weathered, their joints stiff, but their eyes remain sharp. They point with hands gnarled by time, showing the younger ones the marks left in soil, the faint bend of grass, the signs of water hidden beneath the land. Their memory is a living archive, a storehouse of knowledge gathered across decades of survival. They are the keepers of paths, of plants, of seasons. To ignore them is to risk death. To listen is to live. The group moves forward as the sun climbs higher. The ground grows hot, the air heavy. Yet their pace never falters. Endurance defines them. Where predators wait in ambush, swift but short of breath, humans persist. They walk, and they walk, and they do not stop. Sweat cools their bodies. Legs carry them for hours. This patience is their strength, their quiet brilliance. When prey is near, the hunt begins, not in sudden rush, but in steady pursuit. The antelope runs, vanishing into tall grass. The humans follow. Hours stretch long. The animal weakens. Its breath grows ragged. Its steps falter. At last it falls, conquered not by force, but by time. Persistence is the weapon. Endurance is the kill. The carcass is divided carefully. Stone axes cut flesh. Bones are cracked for marrow. Fat stripped for fuel. The smell of roasting meat drifts across the wind, a signal as much as a meal. Hyenas circle, their laughter rising in the distance. Lions wait silently, their eyes glowing beyond the fire's edge. But the humans defend what is theirs. Stones are thrown, flames brandished, voices raised together. For this night, the kill is kept. The sharing is quiet, yet profound. Children are fed first. Elders receive their share. The injured are sustained. This is not kindness. It is necessity. Without the group, there is no survival. To feed one is to protect all. To abandon one is to weaken the whole. In this truth lies the root of cooperation, as old as fire, as deep as stone. The tools they shape remain unchanged, yet they reveal imagination. The Acheulean hand axe, sharp and balanced, appears across continents. Its design perfected long before words were written. It is more than stone. It is thought made visible, intention struck into matter. To hold one is to hold the mind of its maker, preserved across 1,000,000 years. Fire remains the center of their world, fragile, precious, carried carefully from place to place. It is their shield against cold, their weapon against predators, their companion through the night. Embers are wrapped in bark, nurtured as though alive. To lose it is to risk hunger, cold, darkness. To keep it is to claim a fragile dominion. Around its glow they eat, they rest, they share. And in its flicker, imagination stirs. Perhaps it is here, in firelight, that stories begin. Not words as we know them, but gestures, mimicry, sounds carrying meaning. The day's hunt replayed, the danger retold, the lesson remembered. Laughter rises, too, at the clumsy mimicry of animals, at the exaggerated fall of a hunter in retelling. Even in hardship, humor flickers. To laugh is to release, to remind each other that life, though fragile, holds joy. The spread across the earth is unbroken. From Africa to Asia, into Europe, onto islands across seas, they move with rivers, with herds, with seasons. Their presence is written in fossils and tools, in ash from long extinguished fires. They did not move with ambition. They did not plan conquest. They followed necessity, and in doing so became wanderers, explorers, the first to map the earth with their footsteps. To cross water was no accident. They reached islands cut off by sea. Their bones found there as proof. Perhaps they clung to driftwood. Perhaps they lashed reeds into rafts. Perhaps they followed currents unknowingly. However it was done, it was done. They stepped onto shores where no human had stood, carrying fire, carrying tools, carrying memory. The climate shifts always. Ice descends, then retreats. Forests spread, then shrink. Rivers swell, then vanish. Each change demands movement, adaptation, patience. They do not fight the earth, they bend with it. Their resilience lies not in mastery, but in flexibility. To endure is to adjust, to follow, to move. Their face is shaped by bone. are both strange and familiar. Broad brows, heavy jaws, wide noses. Different, yes, yet unmistakably human. To meet them by firelight would be to meet someone who is not other, but kin. Their eyes would carry the same spark we know in ourselves, the same awareness, the same recognition. Death remains near, yet compassion remains nearer. Bones show us the proof, fractures healed, wounds mended, lives extended beyond injury. To feed the weak, to guard the injured. To allow healing is to choose care over abandonment. This choice is humanity's oldest truth. It is written not in words, but in bones that survived because others chose to protect them. Elders remain the guides. Their memory of plants, of paths, of seasons is the group's compass. Their wisdom is not decoration. It is survival. To walk without their knowledge is to walk blind. To follow it is to live. The night falls once again. The fire glows low, embers pulsing like stars against the earth. Above, the true stars blaze, sharp and countless. The Milky Way flowing bright across the sky. The group sleeps close, their breathing steady, their bodies pressed together for warmth. Beyond them, predators call. Grass whispers with unseen movement. The world hums with danger. Yet within the fragile circle of flame, there is calm. They do not know us, but we are theirs. Their endurance is the reason we exist. Their footsteps carried us forward. Their fire still burns in every flame we light. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and through them, we are here. The day begins with a pale haze stretching across the sky. The first warmth of sunlight touches the grass, turning dew into tiny sparks of light that vanish as quickly as they appear. The fire, always the heart of the camp, is stirred once more. Ashes brushed aside, embers glow red. Dry grass is pressed in, and soon the flames rise again. Smoke drifts upward, curling slowly into the cool morning air. Around it, the group wakes. Bodies stretch, eyes blink, hands reach for tools. The rhythm of life resumes unbroken. They carry little, yet what they carry matters. A few sharpened stones, a bundle of dried roots, embers wrapped in bark. Their true possession is knowledge of where rivers run, of when herds move, of which plants heal and which harm. This knowledge is not written but remembered, passed in gestures and imitation, in the slow repetition of daily survival. Children watch, mimic, learn. Elders guide, correct, remind. Every act of life is also a lesson. The land speaks constantly. A line of broken grass whispers of movement. A faint hoof print pressed deep into soil tells of animals nearby. The calls of birds circling above announce water or prey. To those who know how to read it, the world is a book written in signs. Each sound, each mark, each shift in the wind carries meaning. The humans are fluent in this language, though it is never spoken. The sun climbs higher, and with it comes heat. The ground grows warm beneath their steps, the air heavy, shimmering with waves of light. Animals retreat into shade, their bodies panting, conserving energy. But the humans persist. Their bodies are shaped for endurance, their stride unbroken, their sweat cooling their skin. They are not the fastest, not the strongest, but they are the most patient. This patience, this persistence, is their weapon. When the hunt begins, it is not a sudden rush. The antelope flees, swift and graceful, but the humans follow at a steady pace. They track with eyes sharp, reading every sign left in soil and grass. Hours pass. The sun climbs higher still. The antelope falters, exhausted, its breath ragged. The humans do not stop. Step after step, they close the distance until the prey collapses. Victory belongs not to speed, but to endurance. The kill is divided carefully. Tools strike, cutting flesh, breaking bone. Marrow is sucked, meat roasted, hide stripped for use. The smell drifts into the air, rich and heavy, a signal to predators. Hyenas circle, their laughter sharp against quiet. Lions wait, silent in grass, eyes glowing in shade. But the fire burns, stones fly, voices rise. The group defends what is theirs. For this night, the meal belongs to the humans. The sharing is absolute. The child too small to forage is fed. The elder too frail to hunt is nourished. The injured, still healing, receive their portion. To us, it looks like kindness. To them, it is survival. Each life, sustained, strengthens the group. Each life, abandoned, weakens it. In this truth lies the essence of humanity. To care not only for oneself, but for one another. The tools they shape are constant, yet profound. The Acheulean hand axe, sharpened edges, balance form, lies scattered across continents. Its design unchanged for hundreds of thousands of years. To strike stone against stone and imagine a shape into being is an act of vision. Each tool carries within it thought, intention, imagination. They are not simply stones. They are ideas made solid, and fire, fragile yet enduring, remains at the center. It warms, it cooks, it protects, it lights. But it is always temporary, always demanding care. Embers carried in bark, flames guarded through storms, smoke rising as a signal of safety. To lose it is to risk hunger, cold, death. To keep it is to extend life. Around its glow, humanity gathers. Around its circle, the first sparks of culture are born. Perhaps it is here in firelight that stories begin, not in words as we know them, but in gestures, in sounds, in mimicry. A hunter imitates the fall of prey, a child laughs. An elder warns of danger through a sharp sound and pointed hand. Memory is preserved, meaning is shared, imagination stirs. The fire becomes not just warmth, but a stage. The shadows cast by its light are the first outlines of belief. Their spread across the earth is unbroken. From Africa into the Middle East, into Europe, into Asia, onto islands across seas. Each step is small, unnoticed in its moment, but immense in scale. Across thousands of generations, they walk farther, leaving bones, tools, and fire pits as their footprints. They are the first map makers, though their maps are traced not in ink, but in movement. To reach islands, they crossed water. How they did so was uncertain. Logs, rafts of reeds, driftwood, perhaps accidents, perhaps intent. Yet they did it. They reached shores separated by seas, carrying fire, carrying tools, carrying memory. In doing so, they proved that humanity was not confined. The unknown was not a barrier, but a path. The climate shifts endlessly. Ice advances, then retreats. Forests rise, then fall. Rivers carve valleys, then dry to dust. Each change demands adaptation. They do not resist. They move. They bend. They endure. Their success is not in mastery of the earth, but in harmony with it. To live is to adjust, to follow, to remain patient. Their faces, as fossils reveal, are both strange and familiar. Heavy brows, strong jaws, broad noses. Not us, yet not other. To meet them by firelight would be to meet kin. Their eyes, deep and steady, would carry the same spark we see in our own. Recognition would pass silently across the flames. Death is constant, yet compassion remains. Bones tell us this truth. Fractures healed, injuries survived, lives extended by the care of others. Someone carried the weak. Someone fed the injured. Someone protected the frail. Compassion is not new. It is as ancient as fire's old as stone. The elders remain the compass. Their memory of rivers of plants, of seasons guides a group. Their wisdom is not ornament. It is survival. To follow them is to live. To lose them is to risk everything. They are the living libraries of the past, carrying the knowledge that sustains the present. The night falls once again. The fire glows low, its embers pulsing gently, its smoke drifting into the vastness above. The stars return countless and sharp. The Milky Way a river of light unbroken across the sky. The group sleeps close, bodies curled together, breaths slow and steady. Beyond them, the world hums with danger, with movement, with sound. But within the fragile circle of firelight, there is calm. They do not know us, but we are theirs. Their footsteps carried us forward. Their firelight's our own. Their endurance, their compassion, their persistence. These are the roots of humanity. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and through them, we are here. The horizon glows pale once more, a thin line of gold stretching across the edge of the world. The fire, always the first to stir, flickers weakly before rising again into steady flame. Smoke curls into the morning air, carrying its faint scent across the plain. The group wakes around it, one after another, shifting slowly from sleep into motion. Children stretch their limbs, blinking against the light. Elders sit upright, their movements careful, deliberate. Hunters run their fingers along the edges of stone tools, checking for sharpness, readying themselves for the day ahead. The land spreads wide and unbroken. Grass shivers in the wind, its tops heavy with seeds. Birds scatter suddenly from trees, their wings cutting sharp lines through the sky. Insects rise in buzzing clouds, a constant hum woven into the background of life. The humans step into this vastness, their pace steady, their senses alert. Every detail is read, the faint press of a hoof print, the trampled stalks of grass, the shifting calls of animals. To live is to notice. To notice is to endure. They walk with patience, carrying little in their hands, but much in their memory. Their tools are few, but sufficient. A hand axe chipped and sharpened rests in one palm. A small bundle of roots and dried meat is carried in fibers twisted into rope. Embers, wrapped carefully in bark, glow faintly, a fragile flame hidden and preserved. The true weight they carry is knowledge of where rivers bend, where herds move, where storms gather. The sun climbs higher, and the ground begins to burn. Heat rises in shimmering waves, pressing hard against the skin. Other animals retreat into shade, their chests rising fast, tongues lolling in exhaustion. But the humans continue, their stride unbroken. Sweat cools their bodies. Legs carry them forward. This is their strength, the patience to endure, the refusal to stop. In this patience lies victory. The hunt, when it comes, is quiet. An antelope startles and bolts swift and sleek, vanishing into grass. The humans do not rush. They follow, steady, hour after hour. The animal runs, then slows, then runs again. But its strength wanes under the weight of the sun. The humans, tireless, close the gap. At last, the prey collapses, its body overcome by exhaustion. The humans claim it, not through sudden violence, but through time itself. The kill is shared as always. Flesh cut with stone, marrow sucked from bone, fat roasted in flame. The scent rises, drifting far across the plain. It signals survival, but it also signals danger. Hyenas circle, their laughter sharp in the distance. Lions crouch low, waiting in silence. But the humans guard their fire, brandishing sticks lit with flame, throwing stones, raising voices in unison. The predators retreat, for now. For this night, the fire belongs to the humans. The sharing is quiet, but absolute. The child too small to hunt is fed. The elder too weak to walk far is nourished. The injured, their wounds healing slowly, receive their share. To abandon them would weaken the group. To sustain them strengthens all. Compassion is not an invention of civilization. It is as old as stone, as old as fire. It is the root of survival. Tools remain their constant companions. The Acheulean hand axe, balanced and sharp, lies scattered across continents, unchanged for ages. Its design is simple, yet profound. To shape stone into symmetry requires thought, patience, imagination. Each tool is a reflection of its maker's mind, preserved in stone across 1,000,000 years. To hold one today is to hold the memory of ancient hands, the spark of intention struck into matter, and fire, fragile, precious, remains the center of their world. It is warmth and cold, protection and darkness, the cook of food, the light of night. But it is always temporary, always demanding care. Embers are carried across distance, flames guarded against wind and rain. To lose it is to risk hunger, cold, fear. To keep it is to claim a fragile dominion. And in its glow they gather. Around it they eat, they rest, they share. Around it, imagination begins. Perhaps stories are born here. Not stories in words, as we know them, but in gesture and sound, in mimicry. A hunter replays the fall of prey, others laugh. An elder warns of danger with sharp sound and pointed hand. A child imitates, learns, remembers. The firelight becomes not just warmth, but a stage. Its flicker casts shadows that spark imagination. The roots of belief, of culture, of meaning are planted here. The spread across the earth continues, steady and unstoppable. From Africa into Asia, into Europe, across seas to distant islands. Their bones, their tools, their ashes are the map they leave behind. Each discovery today, stone, fire, pit, fossil, is a footprint in time, proof that they walked far, endured much, carried humanity outward. To cross water was among their greatest feats. They reached islands separated by sea, their presence confirmed by fossils. How they crossed remains uncertain. Logs bound together, rafts of reeds, driftwood carried by current. Whatever the method, it was done. They stepped onto new shores, carrying fire, carrying tools, carrying memory. They became the first to push beyond the scene, the first explorers of the unknown. The climate shifts endlessly. Ice advances, then retreats. Forests spread, then shrink. Rivers carve valleys, then dry. Each shift demands change. They do not resist. They adapt. They follow herds. They move with rivers. They leave camps behind when the land no longer sustains. Their success lies not in mastery, but in resilience. They endure not because they control, but because they bend. Their faces, as revealed by bone, are both strange and familiar. Heavy brows, strong jaws, broad noses. Yet their eyes, deep and steady, would mirror our own. To sit across a fire from them would not feel like meeting a beast. It would feel like meeting kin. Recognition would pass silently in the glow. Death walks with them, but compassion walks closer. Bones show healed fractures, injury survived, lives carried forward by the care of others. To protect the weak, to feed the injured, to allow healing. This is as ancient as fire. Humanity's oldest truth is not strength, but care. The elders remain guides, living archives of survival. Their memory of rivers, of plants, of seasons is the group's compass. Their words, if words existed, are maps. Their gestures are directions. To lose them is to lose knowledge. To keep them is to carry the past into the present. The night deepens once more. The fire burns low, embers glowing softly, smoke drifting into the vast sky. Above, the stars return, sharp and countless. The Milky Way a river of light unbroken. The group sleeps close, their bodies curled together, breath slow and even. Beyond them, predators call, grass whispers with unseen movement. The world hums with danger. Yet within the fragile circle of flame, there is peace. They do not know us, yet we are theirs. Their footsteps are the first lines of our story. Their fire is the ancestor of every flame we light. Their endurance, their compassion, their persistence. These are the roots of humanity. They were the first humans to walk the earth, and through them we are here. The embers breathe softly in the darkness, small points of red glowing against the ash. Around them, the shapes of bodies rest in the hush of night. The air is cool, heavy with the scent of grass and distant rain. Beyond the circle of light, shadows move, but the humans do not stir. Their fire is their wall, their faint barrier against the vastness of the wild. When dawn comes, it arrives with sound before sight. Birds cry in the distance, their calls rising through the pale gray air. The hum of insects stirs again. The first rays of light spread across the plain, turning dew into sparks on the grass. Slowly, the group rises. Children rub their eyes. Hunters stretch their arms. Elders sit upright, their faces weathered but calm. A new day begins, much like the one before, and much like the countless days that will follow. The work of survival continues without pause. Women gather plants, searching for roots, seeds, and berries. Men set out with stone tools in hand, their eyes sharp on the horizon. Children follow in their small ways, imitating, learning, carrying knowledge forward. Nothing is wasted, nothing forgotten. A plant that heals a wound, a root that soothes hunger, a path that leads to water. Each detail is stored, shared, remembered. In this way, memory is the first true tool, sharper than any stone. The earth itself is a shifting teacher. Some days bring plenty, herds grazing close, rivers full of fish, forests thick with fruit. Other days bring silence and emptiness. Hunger presses hard, and bellies grow hollow. Yet even in scarcity they move forward. They have no fields, no villages, no storage of grain. They live by following, by adjusting, by trusting the land to offer again. It is a fragile way to live, yet it endures, for patience is their strength. The stone tools remain constant companions. The Acheulean hand axe lies at the center of their survival, its shape perfected over ages, balanced, sharp, simple. In the hands of a skilled maker, stone becomes bone splitter, hide cutter, wood shaper. It is both universal and personal, the same form found across continents, yet each one slightly different, marked by the hand that shaped it. To hold one is to hold both the individual and the species, the personal and the collective, in a single object. Fire, too, continues as the fragile thread of their existence. They do not yet make it from nothing, but they carry it as one carries life itself. Embers glow in bark bundles, tended carefully as they move from place to place. To lose it would be to return to cold and darkness, to depend once more on chance lightning or the strike of stone. And so fire is not only survival, it is responsibility passed from hand to hand, guarded by all. Around it they gather. Around it, they share. Around it, they begin to imagine. The imagination flickers like flame itself. It is not yet bound in words, but it shows in gesture, in mimicry, in rhythm. A hunter reenacts the chase, his arms spread wide, his face fierce. Others laugh softly, understanding. A mother hums to her child, the sound low and steady, lulling it into sleep. Hands carve marks into wood or bone, not for utility, but for something beyond. In these moments, the human mind stretches past the immediate, reaching into the realm of meaning. Animals continue to shape their lives. The herds they follow give them meat, hide, bone. The predators they evade sharpen their senses, teaching caution and unity. The scavengers they compete with remind them that nothing is theirs alone, that all flesh is contested. Yet in time, some animals will shift from threat to companion. Dogs, the first partners of humanity, will one day join their fires, their loyalty born in the long nights of shared danger. For now, the partnership is not yet formed, but the seeds are there, drawn by scent, drawn by scraps, drawn by the warmth of firelight. The land itself transforms under their feet. Glaciers advance, grinding stone into valleys. Forests rise, then vanish under ice. Grasslands spread vast and unbroken. Rivers shift their courses, carving new paths, leaving others dry. Each change demands adaptation. They do not resist the land's shifts. They flow with them. To live is to bend, not to conquer. To endure is to move, not to cling. This is their law, written not in words, but in footsteps. Across ages, their spread continues. Africa is their cradle, but not their boundary. They move outward across the Middle East into Europe, into Asia. Fossils mark their passage. Tools scatter in layers of earth, silent records of migration. Fire pits, bones, footprints pressed into mud. They are the first maps of humanity's expansion. They move not with haste, but with persistence. Distance is measured not in miles, but in generations. When they reached Europe, they encountered a new kin, Neanderthals. Stocky, strong, adapted to the cold. They lived in caves, crafted tools, hunted with skill. For thousands of years, the two shared the same land. Sometimes in competition, sometimes in cooperation. Their DNA mingled, their lives intertwined. To this day, traces remain within us, a memory written in blood and bone. They were not enemies of myth, but cousins of reality. Different, yet deeply human. Other species walked the earth as well. Homo erectus, tall and long-lived, spreading across continents. Homo floresiensis, small and slight, surviving on islands. Denisovans, known now only by fragments of bone, but carrying their legacy into our genes. Humanity was never a single thread, but a woven fabric of many strands, some lost, some surviving. We are not the only humans who lived. We are simply the last who remain. The night returns once more, and with it the fire. The stars scatter sharp across the sky, a river of light unbroken. The group lies close, their breaths rising in rhythm. The predators call in the distance, but the fire holds them back. Within its glow there is safety. Within its warmth there is peace. And within the minds of those gathered, the first sparks of imagination flicker. Dreams that will one day grow into stories, into gods, into civilizations. These early humans did not know the future, but they carried its weight unknowingly. Each step across the plain, each spark of fire preserved, each tool shaped from stone was a foundation laid for what was to come. They were not only survivors of their time, they were architects of ours. The river runs wide and slow, its surface silver in the moonlight. Along its banks, reeds whisper against the night air, bending with each passing breeze. The first humans kneel here, cupping the water in their hands, their reflections broken by ripples. Around them, insects hum, frogs croak, and the distant call of night birds carries across the dark. The river is not only water, it is direction, it is food, it is life itself. Where rivers move, people follow. In the morning light, its value becomes clearer. Fish break the surface, flashing quick fins. Birds stalk the shallows, stabbing at prey. Children splash near the edges, their laughter soft and fleeting. Hunters sharpen spears, knowing that within the water lies both food and danger. Crocodiles wait with still eyes hidden beneath the surface, reminding all that every gift carries a risk. Yet the people remain, drawn by what the river gives. They learn its moods, its currents, its dangers. To know the river is to survive. Beyond the water, the land opens into grassland. Herds stretch across the horizon. Gazelle, zebra, antelope, buffalo. They graze in endless rhythm, moving with the season, seeking fresh growth. The hunters watch them with careful eyes, learning their paths, their habits, their hesitations. A successful hunt means meat for many, hides for shelter, bones for tools. A failed hunt means hunger that gnaws quietly through the night. Patience becomes the greatest skill of all. Stone remains the companion of every hand. Flakes struck from a larger core reveal sharp edges, each one suited for cutting, scraping, piercing. The Acheulean axe still lies at the center, its teardrop shape crafted with precision. But alongside it appear smaller tools, scrapers, burins, blades. Each new form reflects a need met, a challenge answered. The simple stone becomes a library of possibility. To an outside eye, they may all look alike, but within each curve, each chip, lies knowledge passed down, tested against the demands of the world. As the generations move, so too do the humans. The land beneath their feet becomes a story of expansion. From the valleys of Africa, they walk outward, step by step, across thousands of years. They move through deserts, forests, mountains, into the Levant, into Asia, into Europe. Their spread is not hurried. It unfolds slowly, measured by the rhythm of survival. Yet with each new step, the world of humans grows larger. When they entered colder lands, they found new challenges. The winds cut sharper, the nights stretched longer. Forests replaced grasslands, and snow pressed heavily on the ground. Here, survival required adaptation. Warmer clothing stitched from hides, sturdier shelters dug into earth or framed from bone. Fire grew even more vital. Its warmth, not only comfort, but life itself. Those who carried it carefully, who guarded its embers, ensured survival through the long winters. In these cold places, they were not alone. The Neanderthals had already made their homes here, stocky and strong. They built lives in caves and hunted with skill. Their tools were crafted with care, their fires kept bright against the darkness. For many generations, Neanderthals and Homo sapiens shared the same ground, sometimes competing for game, sometimes learning from each other, sometimes joining together. In their DNA, traces still flow within us, reminders of encounters long past. The first humans were not isolated threads, but part of tapestry. Denisovans in the east, Floriensis on the islands, Erectus enduring in scattered lands. For a time, the earth was filled with many kinds of humans, each adapting, each surviving. Some would fade, some would merge, some would leave echoes in our blood. To think of early humanity is not to picture one single figure, but a chorus of forms, each adding to the story. Night after night, the fire remained the center. Around it, silence gave way to murmurs, to laughter, to the faint beginnings of song. A stick scratched lines into dirt, perhaps meaningless, perhaps the start of symbol. Bones carved with notches hinted at rhythm, at counting, at memory. The mind stretched, reaching beyond the immediate needs of hunger and shelter. Slowly, culture began to take shape, not in cities, not in temples, but in gestures, in marks, in small acts of imagination. Animals still defined much of life. They were prey, they were threat, they were mystery. Some became part of stories told in movement and sound, their shapes carved into stone or bone. The great mammoth, with its towering form, left tracks deep in the snow. The cave lion, feared and respected, glimmered in firelight when hunters spoke it. To see these creatures was to feel awe, fear, reverence. Long before gods, there were animals, beings larger than life, shaping thought as much as they shaped survival. Seasons marked time more than numbers ever could. The heat of summer baked the earth. The rains of spring swelled the rivers. The snow of winter silenced the plains. Each shift demanded response. Movement followed food. Camps rose and fell. People learned not to resist change, but to move with it. This was the true calendar. Leaves turning, rivers rising, stars shifting in the night sky. Time was not counted, but lived. As their spread continued, so did their presence in the land. Caves held the marks of their passing. Charcoal from fires left black stains on walls. Bones split, for marrow lay scattered. Tools abandoned remained buried in soil. Each fragment a record. Each layer of earth a page in a book no one intended to write. When uncovered today, they tell stories of survival, of adaptation, of persistence. They remind us that history is not only words, but also silence, not only monuments, but also ashes. The mind of humanity, still young, was restless. Dreams carried them into realms beyond waking life. Patterns in stars hinted at meaning. Shapes in clouds invited wonder. Death, ever present, stirred questions. What happened when the body grew still? Did breath vanish into the air? Did spirit move elsewhere? They had no answers. But the questions themselves marked a shift. To wonder about death is also to wonder about life. In this way, humanity began to step into the realm of the unseen. Gentle humor could be found even then. A child slipping into mud, an elder missing a step, a hunter returning empty-handed, while birds mocked from above. Laughter softened the edges of hardship. In a life ruled by survival, humor was not luxury but medicine. It reminded them that even in hunger, even in cold, the spirit could still lift. In this sense, laughter became as vital as fire, carrying warmth not to the body, but to the heart. The night deepens again. The fire burns low. Its glow soft against the faces gathered close. Stars gleam above, unmoved by the passing of days. Somewhere far off, a lion roars, its call low and resonant, rolling across the plain. The humans listen, their eyes reflecting both fear and respect. They do not yet know what lies ahead. Agriculture, cities, writing, history. But within them lies the seed of all that will come. In their steps, in their fires, in their questions, the foundation of humanity is already laid. And so they sleep, wrapped in hides, curled close to warmth, dreams drifting between the real and the imagined. Tomorrow they will rise again to walk, to hunt, to gather, to live. In this endless rhythm, they endure. Not yet kings of the earth, not yet builders of stone, but already human in the truest sense. Curious, adaptable, and quietly carrying the story of us all. The morning light spills across the land, pale gold stretching over ridges and valleys. Mist clings to the low ground, where dew beads the grass and shimmers under the rising sun. The first humans stir slowly, pushing aside hides, rubbing warmth into their hands. Fire embers glow faintly, coaxed back into flame with dry grass and gentle breath. Around them, the world is both familiar and endlessly new. Each dawn demands attention, each sound a clue, each movement of the earth a lesson. They walk together, their footsteps pressed into soil that softens with morning damp. Some scatter toward the trees, listening for the rustle of fruit falling, for the scurry of small animals among leaves. Others move to the plain, watching the horizon where herds begin their slow migration. Their movements are purposeful but unhurried. Life is measured not in minutes, but in needs. Water, food, warmth, shelter. The rhythm of survival allows no excess, but it also leaves no emptiness. Every act holds weight. Stone, still the faithful companion, lies at the heart of their hands. Its edges cut through hide, split meat, scrape marrow from bone. Over time, the tools become more refined, their shapes guided by memory and shared knowledge. A hand holding a flint knows where to strike, how to angle, how to pressure. This knowledge is not written but lived, passed through countless repetitions until it becomes second nature. What looks like chance is in truth skill sharpened by generations. The young watch, their eyes fixed on the movements of the elders. They imitate, sometimes clumsy, sometimes surprising in their precision. Learning flows not in words, but in action. To see is to absorb. To repeat is to understand. Long before schools, before books, knowledge spread in this way, embedded in hands, etched into habits. Each person carried the archive of human survival. Each child became the next link in a chain stretching backward and forward beyond their knowing. In time, these simple skills would become the scaffolding for more complex thoughts. But even now, the seeds of imagination stir. A child tracing shapes in the dirt, a hunter carving lines into a bone, a singer humming a rhythm as the sun sets. These are beginnings of culture, faint sparks that will one day ignite into art, language, story. The origins are not dramatic, not sudden, but quiet. Creativity begins like fire from ember, slowly coaxed until it glows. The animals remain central to life. Some provide food, others pose danger. Yet beyond these roles, they also shape thought. The mammoth inspires awe with its vastness, the lion with its strength, the eagle with its silent flight. In time, these creatures will find their way into myths, into symbols, into the heart of human imagination. But even here, 1,000,000 years ago, their presence stirs reverence. To walk among them is to feel both small and significant, vulnerable yet deeply alive. The stars above guide the night. Though their meaning is not yet charted, their constancy is felt. Hunters glance upward, perhaps wondering why they remain fixed, while others drift. Patterns emerge, not constellations with names, but shapes noticed, rhythm sensed. In this quiet looking, the sky begins to weave into human thought. Long before astronomy, long before maps, the stars served as reminders of scale, of mystery, of permanence against the fleeting span of life. Humor slips into their days as easily as shadow. A misplaced step into mud, a tumble into grass, a failed throw of a spear, It all invites laughter. Even in hunger and cold, in exhaustion, they find moments of lightness. This soft irony, this shared amusement, is more than play. It strengthens bonds, eases tensions, offers resilience. Where food is uncertain and life fragile, laughter becomes a tool as essential as stone, as enduring as fire. Seasons turn slowly. Heat shimmers across plains, rains flood rivers, snow thickens forests. Each change demands adaptation. Camps shift, paths alter, diets transform. Yet the people remain steady, bending with the seasons rather than breaking against them. They do not fight the rhythm of the earth. They move within it. In this way, they survive not as conquerors but as participants, woven into the cycles of wind, water, and soil. Over centuries, their steps carry them outward. Across grasslands, deserts, rivers, and seas, humans spread. They enter forests of Asia, tundras of Europe, islands beyond sight of the mainland. Each migration opens new challenges. Strange plants, new predators, unfamiliar climates. And with each challenge, they adapt. Warmer clothing, sharper tools, sturdier shelters. Each innovation, a whisper of resilience. The earth grows larger in their steps, yet also smaller, as each new place becomes home. They are not alone in this spread. Neanderthals thrive in colder lands, Denisovans in the east, other hominins scattered in remote pockets. For thousands of years, humanity is not a single form but a family of variations, each surviving in its own way. Some will fade, some will merge, some will leave traces in our bones. To imagine early humanity is to imagine diversity, a chorus of beings walking side by side across the same earth. Caves hold echoes of their passing. Fires stain ceilings black. Tools lie buried in soil. Bones show marks of cutting. In some, the faint scratches of lines appear, perhaps symbols, perhaps nothing, perhaps the earliest attempts to capture thought in form. These fragments speak without words. They tell us that even then, humans were reaching beyond the immediate, seeking ways to preserve, to remember, to express. Death shadows every step, yet with it arises the faint stir of reflection. Bodies placed carefully, objects left beside them, gestures that suggest belief, or at least hope, in something beyond. Whether or not they imagined an afterlife, they sensed the weight of life itself. To pause, to mark, to care for the dead, is also to affirm the value of the living. In this act, humanity begins to step into the unseen, carrying questions that will echo across ages. The legacy of these early lives is not found in monuments or writings, but in the quiet persistence of their survival. Each fire tended, each tool struck, each path walked. These were the foundations of all that would follow. Civilization rests not only on invention, but on endurance, on the countless small acts that allowed one day to follow another. And so the story closes not with grandeur, but with simplicity. A family gathered by fire, sparks drifting upward into night, stars scattered above, unmoved by passing time. In their laughter, in their hunger, in their sleep, they carried the essence of humanity, curious, adaptable, enduring. From them would come villages, cities, nations, knowledge. But here in the stillness of 1,000,000 years ago, all that mattered was the rhythm of survival, the warmth of fire, the bond of kin. The first humans walked the earth not as rulers, not as legends, but as survivors. And in that survival lay the seed of everything we now are. Their footsteps still echo beneath ours. Their fires still glow within our memory. Their questions still linger in our minds. To look back at them is to look at the beginning of ourselves.